And welcome into the Wednesday edition of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, intern Will here with you on this Wednesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee.
When does intern Will get Will last name instead of intern Will? Is there a certain break-in period?
There's got to be some work that's put in to get
Okay.
to that point.
You got to earn it.
Yeah, it's
all right. And maybe he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't want that.
It's earning it every day. He may not want it. I don't know.
He said he's got to earn it.
Okay. All right.
He's putting in the reps.
So Michelle,
It's like the kicking competition, just the reps every day, trying to get better, consistency.
That's right. So Michelle, you decide. Okay.
Whoa. Whoa there,
Wow.
that's a lot of pressure.
Well, hey, I mean, you're in the studio, you're running the show.
He's doing great.
All right.
He is doing great. Just a little bit more time.
Yeah. All right.
good.
Intern Will. It's a cool name.
I was about to say, I'd probably rather go by that. I was a former intern here.
Radio host Rob.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, wouldn't you prefer to be called that
Yeah, it's
instead of your name?
kind of disrespectful that you don't call me radio host Rob.
Did you see Ron?
Judging on everything else around there.
Exactly. Did you see Ron Rivera?
Oh, yeah.
He's like, you mean coach guys?
You mean coach guys? That was great.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. Good stuff, Ron.
Ron Rivera seems like a pretty cool guy.
He does. He does. A cool guy.
Unfortunately,
Frustrated
coaching
with his football
Washington football team.
But
Unfortunately, he's in there. He's there.
He's got Fitz magic, though.
Well, there is that. Wish him nothing but success this year.
Harvard, anybody who has got a Harvard player, as the Titans do, makes things a little bit better.
That's right. That's right. Got a busy show for you here today. We'll be joined at 8 o'clock by Shane Bowen, Titans defensive coordinator. So looking forward to that coming up at 8 o'clock here on the show. What was the day like yesterday at Tennessee Titans training camp? Day 2 of the officials out there for the Titans. Joe Rexrode has his notepad in hand out there taking copious notes. What stood out yesterday on the field for Titans in training camp?
Let's see. Yeah, so I'll just go through some of the plays that stood out to me. Nick Westbrook-Akina.
Oh, yeah, buddy.
Actually did have a big time. It was a fade. Jackrabbit Jenkins had him covered about as well as you could cover someone, and Nick NWI came away with the catch. He actually had a really good day. He stood out a little bit yesterday. Probably the best throw of camp was yesterday, and it was Tannehill to Ferkser, Hooker and man coverage, Byard, the free safety, man free defense, and he had a tight little window to drop it between those two safeties. Got it there. Great throw. Tannehill had a weird day. In that period, which was on field 1, he was absolutely carving them up. And then on the other field, all of a sudden he just started sailing everything. He sailed 3-4 straight passes, and at the end of that period, he tried to find A.J. Brown on a post, and Byard elevated him, just clean pick.
Yeah.
Great play by Byard, but also, just not a great pass by Tannehill. Marcus Johnson, again, 2 straight just big-time plays. Again, one of them, Fulton's coverage was about as good as you can have it. Let's see. Chester Rogers, again, making plays. I mean, it's the same guys, making plays. I mean, I think Westbrook-Akina is starting to also, show out a little bit. But Marcus Johnson continues to be the best receiver in camp. I mean, other than A.J. Brown early, but he's getting a ton of reps now.
Was on the field again yesterday, A.J. Brown.
He was, and he made some plays too. There was a bomb to A.J. Brown that was okay, there you go, but from Tannehill. Actually, Mason Kinsey's another guy who, again, he's a camp guy, and it's not realistic for him to make this team, in my opinion. But he's one of, he's a credit to the camp, I mean, he's out there every day making plays. He actually beat Caleb Farley pretty soundly on a particular play. Farley Farley's trying to work his way up to that first group, not there yet. Brady Breeze, who we've kind of been waiting to make a play. This was Woodside at quarterback. Fulton on a blitz. It was a pass to Kinsey. Breeze got the pick 6. I forget who tipped it. It was a tipped pass. So Brady Breeze, hey, Brady Breeze
plays,
out there.
buddy.
Yeah.
Attaboy.
I'm looking at another NWI a deep out. So he made some plays. Ray Dunn's, had worked at working around different spots. He's working inside. He's working outside. So more work outside. So he's listed inside and all that. I mean, don't just give up on him as being a tackle. Roberson got him pretty good on a particular play. He had some good reps, though, too. So, I mean, it's not like it's all bad for Radens. It's like you just notice, obviously, when a tackle gets beat on an island by a pass rusher. And if it's a Derek Roberson or something like that, it's not like you're getting beat by Bud Dupree,
That is correct.
So those
I
are
can confirm that visually.
There's another pick. This is a Woodside again, another one where it's a PBU. And then the other Farley. Matthias Farley with the pick, and he's
brought his name up a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that look, Cruikshank's problem, is availability. He has been out there lately, but Farley I think he's got a shot here. Farley, Breeze, is it one of the two? Might be Farley.
Hey, give me some Brady Breeze or Matthias Farley. I'm cool with it.
I mean, that's an interesting situation at safety because they can take some corners and potentially move them back if they need it, so they could keep fewer safeties.
Yep.
Obviously, Chris Jackson came here kind of sold as a corner and safety. He really hasn't worked much at safety, but potentially him. And then the same thing has been said about Molden.
Yep.
I mean, they're keeping him in the slot right now, but it's possible. If you feel like a guy could handle it, that you could do that and then make up a position elsewhere. Like, I don't know, receiver. And then you can keep 9 receivers.
Yeah, just keep them all. Why not? Speaking of receiver, A.J. Brown, I guess, had a sleeve on yesterday. Was there much talk about that at Titans training camp yesterday?
Well, Jared asked about it, and that's a fair question. Basically, are you concerned about the knee? He asked Todd Downing because A.J. Brown, we know, had knee surgery. We know had issues going back to last camp. And we know that early in this camp he had nothing on. So the fact that he has a sleeve, does that mean something? I'll say this. We're also watching him run around yesterday. I don't think there's any health concerns right now. So I'm assuming it's just, okay, maybe wear the sleeve, just be a precaution. They're not going to have him practice right now if they're concerned about his knee.
Right.
So while I get the question from Jared because it's a change and he just had missed some time, I mean, to me, the answer is kind of in, one, the fact that he's out there doing everything, and two, how he's running.
Well, and if there was the slightest question about A.J. Brown right now, he would not be on the field. I mean, there's zero point in having him on the field.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So no.
I'm going to say
I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say he's okay.
Big dunk on that one. But it was good to see Jared out there again. Jared, kind of slacking lately, taking a few days off, but it was good to see him. We have Michelle out there. We had Caroline out there.
First day at training camp.
Represent.
Yeah, what'd you think of the whole thing?
It was awesome. I mean, considering last year when I covered training camp in Indianapolis, it was all Zoom. So it was really nice even though it's not full availability like training camp used to be, it was nice just to be out there and in-person press conferences and player interviews and all of that.
Nice and cool for you yesterday?
Oh, it was
no
hot
weather?
It was really hot.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, again today and again tomorrow. I guess tomorrow it's a travel day, but today they're doing the afternoon practice.
I just want to give you credit. Like, you're going like sans hat out there, aren't you? It's just, do you have a hat on when you're out there?
Oh, no, I got a bucket hat.
Oh, okay, do you? I didn't know.
Yeah.
Joe was rocking the bucket hat.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture
You
today.
should.
I look pretty good in it.
What has fascinated me is like J-Rob and Vrabel. Like, Vrabel's always got like this jacket on out there, which I get why. I guess you're covering up your skin from the sun.
Yeah.
But to me, like, I just think about wearing a jacket in 100-degree weather. I think I might die.
Well, I think, and I don't know, J-Rob may be, I mean, J-Rob's wearing some sweatshirts sometimes out there. Now, sometimes it's like short sleeves with a little sweatshirt vest kind of thing.
Still pretty thick attire.
But still, yeah. But like, hey, like I was saying, sitting at the press conference, I'm like, this is, to me, is like, it's like a free sauna, Drop a couple pounds out here, just walking around. Don't have to actually do anything. I mean, I'll take it. So,
good. I mean, it's a great
sweat it out,
program.
man.
I need to get out there and just stand out in the sun for a while. I could use used to lose a few lbs out there.
I mean, It will work
Yeah.
if you're out there long enough. Yeah, I mean, like my kids' practices. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Brennan actually still had to have football practices. The heat index wasn't quite there, but
Just
like
slightly under.
middle school tennis practice got canceled yesterday.
Yeah, it's going to be another scorcher out there today again. So
Another thing that happened yesterday, Nolensville Little League to the College World Series, by the way.
Well, not the College World Series.
Oh, my
but
gosh.
the Little League World Series.
I keep saying that at home, too. Yes, the Little League World
They
Series.
actually made the College World Series.
Well, if
That's
Nolensville made the
impressive.
College World Series, that'd be all
They
we'd
do,
be talking about today.
Well, they do look like Vanderbilt. They got the Vanderbilt kind of uniforms. And Scott Brown, Vanderbilt pitching coach, his son, one of the kids who a key player for that team. Shout out to the Newman family too.
Yeah.
Ryan Newman was a kid on that team, and so Nolensville,
Represent.
the whole world is soon to know.
That's your neck of the woods, man.
That's right, baby.
You got to get you a hat. Get him to send in a hat here to the show. We can represent on the show, on the live stream together.
All right,
YouTube, Twitch,
I'll look
and
into
Periscope
that.
as well.
I think they play. I think it starts the 19th. I think that's right.
We're
in
becoming kind
PA.
of a Little League World Series factory around here. Lots of
Yeah, it
of
wasn't
very
that long
good.
ago. Hendersonville.
It was Goodlettsville.
Oh, sorry,
Yep.
it was Goodlettsville
Yep.
in 16, I think, right?
Well, there was one before that. They may have gotten back there in 16. I can't remember, but there's a lot of really good youth baseball around here.
Yeah. No, not. Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, last month when I did the Dixie Youth Baseball State Championship in Greenbrier, Tennessee, these kids can play, man. Like, it's unbelievable how good they are at 9 and 10 years old. It's pretty epic.
Yeah.
I don't
no,
remember being quite that good at 9 and 10 years old.
It's very good. Like, none of my kids, they all did the T-ball thing and then got out of baseball pretty quickly, sadly for me.
Yeah.
But, I was kind of familiar with what the baseball was in Michigan. We came down here, and I was very impressed. My nephews play baseball here, too, so I got to see a lot of their travel. I mean, it's outstanding. I think it's a good soccer state, good baseball state.
A growing high school football state.
Yes.
Not quite where it needs to be yet, high school football, but it's a lot better than it was 15 years ago.
Like I said, a phone conversation with a prominent high school football coach last night talking about that. Basically, like if you like the resources here have been a huge difference in the last few years. Like in terms of you got more coaches now who it's their job, right, and that's a big deal. If you can actually, you're full-time faculty member and you're a coach, and that's your you're going to get better coaching, better style, that stuff, more resource for the schools. But like if you compare Tennessee to Georgia in that way, for example, it's
still got some work to do.
a long way. Yeah.
We're off and running here today on Robby and Rexrode. Taking your thoughts all show long on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on Titans training camp, including a guy that continues to turn heads on a daily basis. We'll get into that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5. The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, intern Will, here with us on this Wednesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm just going to say intern Will every time now, even if he's not here. Intern Will is always here with us.
I-dub.
I-dub. There you go. I like that. Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texture that says, Nolensville plays for the South Regional Championship today. Coach Chris McCarry has taken 2 other teams to the Little League World Series from South Nashville. It's a dynasty.
But they also are in the College World. Oh, my gosh.
The Little
League World Series.
Yeah, they have punched their ticket.
Yeah, they're in. Both these teams are in.
Yes.
So, awesome. Little League.
I'm going to start keeping
World Series.
a tally of how many times you call it the College World
seriously,
Series.
like at home, I did it last night like 4 times. So, hopefully I'm just about getting it out of my system.
That's right.
We said, you said those 3 words so often about
That's all
6
we talked
weeks
about
ago,
for a
right?
month, yeah.
So, cut me some slack.
Oh, I'm cutting you some slack, buddy.
It's needed.
It's all good. Talking Titans training camp, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe, one name that I've not heard with anywhere near as much regularity the last couple of weeks, the last week or so, has really been Racey McMath, who was the story of training camp the first few days. Everybody was talking about Racey McMath. A.J. Brown came out there and said that Racey McMath, with the way he plays the game, sometimes reminds him of Julio Jones, which, of course, generated a lot of attention, a lot of buzz in the media room when those comments were made. Not a whole lot about Racey McMath the last few days at training camp. What have you seen from the new number 81 from the Titans out there?
Actually, he had a couple nice plays yesterday. I mean, he still looks impressive in terms of, he's still just as big and fast,
That's good.
But yeah, I mean, he hasn't made the same plays he was making early. It's a little bit, calmed down, I guess, in that way. And again, there are other guys who are kind of stepping in and just consistently impressing at receiver, with A.J. Brown out there a little bit, Julio Jones not out there at all after a brief little appearance, and Josh Reynolds just now kind of getting back into things. So other guys have stepped up. But, yeah, I mean, Racey McMath, I think this is Friday. Listen, if you love watching punts, those reps are really important. You're playing against another team.
I do love watching Brett Kern punt the ball.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
But even the coverage of a punt, that's going to tell out of the story here. Who are the gunners? You want really good gunners, and who's going to be in the kicking game? A standout. I think that's McMath's the McMath is that way. But he's also, he's interesting, when you think about trying to figure out this room, is there really going to be someone out there who signs up Racey McMath to be on their active roster if he's exposed on waivers? I shouldn't say I know for sure no, but boy, I think you might be okay there, because that would be ideal.
Sure.
He's a perfect practice squad candidate. I think there is. I don't know if there's not Julio Jones potential, okay, but there's potential for him to be a productive receiver in the NFL. I really believe that, but it also, he's still young, and there are guys who are just much more polished out on the field right now.
Well, that's the thing. It's, can the Titans develop him? Because physically, the tools that he brings to the table, you've talked about it many times. There's not a whole lot of guys that have that combination of size and speed. So that by itself, that excites you. If you're a Titans fan or a member of that coaching staff, I think you look at Racey McMath and say, all right, physically, there's something here that we can work with. It doesn't necessarily have to come this year. And that's the luxury of, selecting him where you did in the draft. You can have some time to build him up and to develop him, whereas when you're drafting somebody in the first or second round, you need them to be productive immediately for you. That's not necessarily the case with Racey McMath.
No, and even if he makes the team, which he may well make the roster, that's a long way from him being on the field with the offense.
Yeah.
It's just that would require some injuries. But there are other guys who, I mean, look, Marcus Johnson, if they played right now, if they played the Cardinals right now, and I'm assuming, okay, Julio's, he's been careful. He's ready. A.J. Brown's fine. Honestly, I think the clear number 3 receiver is Marcus Johnson.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think at this point it's a mirage. You got to – it's interesting with NFL preseason camp because at times you're like, okay, I don't want to overreact to that, so I'm going to hold off. Like, for example, Deshaun Kaiser. He was pretty good in the spring, and he was bad early in camp, and I didn't buy that it was just going to end like that for him. Well, it did.
It did.
Sometimes you look at it it's like, yeah, actually, it's as bad as you think, and bye. I mean, that's how it happens in the NFL. So Racey McMath, I think it was good to sort of be like, just hold off and let's see. Again, he's got a lot of potential, but that's cooled down a little bit. Marcus Johnson, at this point, I'm believing what I'm seeing because it's every day. And he's a really interesting case. I mean, he's, the Colts the last 3 years didn't play a ton, but, in 18, he gets 6 catches for 102. He's averaging 17 a catch. In 19, he's 17 for 277, 16.3 a catch, a 50-yarder, a couple touchdowns. Last year, 14, 255, 18.2 a catch, along a 55. Kind of the occasional deep shot guy, basically. He broke in with Philly, bouncing around, always like a talented guy at Texas. But you look at his Texas numbers. At Texas, 22 catches, 350, 27 catches, 313 as a junior, 12 catches, 130 as a senior. Nothing that screams NFL receiver.
Yep.
It seems to be a guy who has figured a lot of things out. And, look, he ran a 4.39 coming into the league, so everybody knew he had blazing speed. That's going to give you a chance. But clearly it's a guy who's worked on his craft, and I'm just watching him out there doing a variety of things to get open, catching everything, making big plays, and it may be an overreaction to think that he's going to be like a productive member of the team this year and have like a big role, but I think you're very possibly going to see him making some plays this year.
Well, to your point, he's done it every day. That's eventually you've got to pay attention to that. If you're Vrabel, if you're the coaching staff, if you're out there covering it, I mean, every day I look at a bunch of Titans training camp coverage, and all of it is about Marcus Johnson making plays every single day at this point. Now, obviously to your point, A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, they're not out there every day. Derrick Henry's not out there every day doing things in team period. Marcus Johnson is a guy that's out there every day and needs every rep that he can get. But it's very difficult to stack this many days together in a row in training camp and still bring your best to the table on a daily basis. And at some point, I mean, we're 2 weeks into camp now. That's got to count for something if you're Marcus Johnson. Like, I know that preseason games are going to tell a lot of this story as well. And if he comes out and doesn't play well in the preseason games, maybe that changes the story a little bit. But at this point, it's hard to imagine Marcus Johnson not making this team based on the reporting that I've seen and everything that he's done at training camp. It's very difficult, I think, to imagine him not being a part of this roster at this point.
No, I'm almost to the point where I'd say I'd be shocked if he didn't make the team. Now, but again, I'm moving on to what's he going to be to this team?
Yeah.
Chester Rogers is probably the next guy in terms of consistently, day after day, showing up out there. Another veteran, another guy who's been with the Colts, another guy who, has been around the league and knows how to play. And the thing with Chester Rogers, of course, is that right now he's listed as the number 1 punt returner. I'm taking that whole depth chart with, do whatever you want with that thing. But, I mean, that matches up with what he's doing in practice. So if that's his role and he's their choice, well, there's another one. There's another 2 guys who I didn't think were going to make, I didn't have making the team going into camp who are about to, possibly. One, I think for sure.
Well, and there was some chatter yesterday about, is Josh Reynolds the number 3 on this team? Is that spot secure? And we talked about, the Paul Kaharski, A.J. Brown situation and how Josh Reynolds has not looked explosive thus far at camp. We've just penciled in Josh Reynolds as the number 3 for this team. Is that spot in danger in your mind for Josh Reynolds at this point?
Well, yeah, I mean, right now he's got to get healthy and get out there and make plays. And even if he gets healthy, it's going to be interesting. I mean, is he a more effective player than Marcus Johnson? I don't know. He's got to be really good to be more effective than him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think
the other part. I mean, it's
I'd
not
put
like
anything in the air as a possibility.
it's not like they're paying Josh Reynolds a ton of money either. Like, it's one thing if you've invested a lot of capital to bring a guy in and be your number 3 receiver. I mean, he's getting paid $1 million. It's not like they're paying him a ton of money out there.
Right. It's kind of like it's kind of a prove it deal for him in a year, where the cap's doing what it's doing, and you hope again, when he signed, he was the number 2 receiver.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, basically. So you're right. So it's not. I mean, anything could be on the table here, including him being cut. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't expect it right now. I wouldn't predict that, but availability, big deal in this league, and Mike Vrabel makes no bones about it.
Yeah.
I mean, he talks about it like, hey, it's got to be better, got to be out there, and not that there's the insensitivity to injury, but I mean, that's a big part of whether you can make it in this league or not, or sustain yourself in this league, is being able to go out there. And every single day Marcus Johnson's out there, every single day he looks like a professional receiver who could help this team.
When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on the Titans, taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025, including when do you reach a point of concern with what could be the Titans' most important player this year? We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. ESPN 94.9 is the official English radio home of the Nashville Soccer Club. Listen in Sunday as Nashville SC takes on DC United at Nissan Stadium. Pregame starts at 5:45 and the match begins at 6 p.m. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Speaking of Nashville SC, we'll have Don Garber, MLS Commissioner, joining us at 9:40 today here on the show, so make sure you're tuned in for that. Some exciting times to be a Nashville SC fan. Ian Ayers, CEO, put out there yesterday season tickets for the new stadium, going very, very well to this point for Nashville SC, and those are going to be on sale to the general public as well starting now. So it's been a pretty good run of success here, both on the pitch and off the pitch for Nashville SC as of late.
Yep, and the new stadium is going to be awesome. Ian Ayers got extended, too, by the way, through 2026, so huge deal when they landed him, when John Ingram landed him in 2018, and that's it's already great atmospheres at Nissan, but when they have that place, it's going to be pretty cool.
Yep,
and everything about it too. The area around it. I mean, it's just another part of Nashville that's going to benefit from soccer.
And we'll talk about that a little bit more coming up later in the show with Don Garber, MLS Commissioner, right around 9:40 when he's scheduled to join us. So looking forward to that conversation coming up later today here on the show. Right now talking Titans, taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. And Joe, one of the things that we've talked about so far through Titans camp, maybe Ryan Tannehill being a little bit more loose with the ball in terms of taking chances, throwing some interceptions, and that has continued to be the case over the course of the last few days as well. You brought up earlier in the show, Kevin Byard, a nice clean pick of Ryan Tannehill in a drill yesterday at Titans training camp. And Todd Downing, new offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans, was asked about the interceptions so far in camp, and at what point do these interceptions that Ryan Tannehill and the quarterbacks are throwing start to become a concern? Here's what Titans offensive coordinator Todd Downing had to say yesterday at his press conference.
You've mentioned take care of the football, interceptions notable again today. At what point do they cross the line of teachable moments, getting used to new guys around you, and become cause for concern in the preseason?
Yeah, they've come in different situations, and some of them are flat out unacceptable. We got to take care of the ball down in the red zone. When we're down there, we can't try to force it into tight windows when the throw isn't there. And then some of them we're working 2-minute drills at the end of the game, and we're down on the clock, and we got to give somebody an opportunity to go make a play. But they're on a case-by-case basis, and I think that as long as the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the quarterback coach, and the quarterbacks are all in lockstep on what's acceptable and what's not in terms of putting the ball in harm's way, we'll be okay by the end of it. Ryan's a guy that certainly is history of taking care of the football, and Logan and Matt are the same way. So I'm not concerned about it as long as it doesn't become a repeated issue.
So that was Todd Downing yesterday at Titans training camp discussing the interceptions, saying they come in different ways. Some of them are flat out unacceptable. Some of them teachable moments, as Lehman brought up in the question there. At what point, though, Joe, if you're Todd Downing or if you're Mike Vrabel and you're watching what's happening so far in training camp, do you start to become concerned about the interceptions? Have you arrived at that point yet? Is that something with Ryan Tannehill that he's built up enough trust at this point when the games actually happen that you're not that concerned about it until you start to see it in a game?
First of all, by the way, Matt Barkley has twice as many picks as TD, so that's not his history. It's 11 to 22 because he hasn't played a ton. But right. I think this is another one of those you got to believe what you see at a certain point, and you have to be able to kind of look at it like, okay, what is sort of experimenting, not messing around, but trying to push the envelope a little bit, maybe just to see, if guys can make some plays in some situations, maybe even at times to see if the defensive guys can make plays. And I think, and Tannehill talked about that last week. So I buy that. I do think that he's made some bad plays. Again, I talked about yesterday, he had just had a period where all of a sudden he just sailed he had A.J. Brown wide open twice on out patterns. It just was 5 yards over his head. Just missed it, yeah. But at the same time, you also go, I think back to when, of course, the Titans are going to play Brady and company next week. So when the Patriots came in here, I remember, when Brady was like throwing against the Titans defense, it was almost comical. Yeah. It was just like, just touchdown, 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 And then Mariota was not good. But I remember that day that, like, Tannehill was so bad. And I remember that day, like, there is no way he's even going to touch. Like, he's not even challenge Mariota this year. Look at this guy. And we know what happened. So you just have to – I mean, if you took every single throw and rep through camp, Tannehill still looks good. He has definitely pushed it and he's been victimized more than he'd like. It's not like when the guy's picking him off, he's like, all right, good job, D. I mean, he's mad. So, I mean, he's kind of working through some trial and error too. And is that in some cases not having chemistry with some guys that he hasn't played with a ton? Is that in some cases, new plays and new routes? I mean, it's, what if the defense just throwing curveballs? I think some of it is credit to the defense. Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, they're playing aggressively. And they look good. I mean, even yesterday, Tannehill made some great throws, and there were some big-time catches I mentioned earlier. Westbrook-Akina, Ferkser had. I mean, that was a great pass. Those plays, really well covered. So you got to look at that too. The defense is playing very aggressively, and it's paying off. Bottom line is, I wouldn't be concerned about Tannehill, but I think the coaches at some point, it's one of those things they believe, you practice, you play how you practice. So they'd probably like to see some clean days where he's just carving up the defense consistently. I thought yesterday was going to be that after the period where he had the pass to Ferkser, Westbrook-Akina, and a few others, Marcus Johnson. But then that last period, the defense just came back and flat out won.
Well, I mean, it'd also be probably beneficial for Ryan Tannehill to have Henry and A.J. Brown and Julio Jones out there a lot.
It might help.
Might help a little bit.
Well, that might be okay.
Some of this is what training camp's for, right?
Yes.
To work through issues like this. I've seen enough of Ryan Tannehill in games at this point for me to not be overly concerned. I get it, and we've talked about this. Sometimes the fascination with what goes on in training camp practice to me is something that I've just got to get used to in the NFL because it's way different than any other sport.
Right.
I mean, there's so much attention paid to practice plays that it's just at times mind-boggling to me. But I get it. It's the only thing we've got to go off of right now as to how they look.
And they can't they can't practice their sport like other sports can.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, hockey's a little bit like that too. You don't want like full checking and all that stuff a ton when you're in preseason. But I mean, every other sport there's a lot more repetition and stuff. Yeah. In football, it's like, especially now, you have these tiny little. I mean, how much is this offense going to practice together before they get to the opener? I bet you not a ton.
A whole lot. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Todd Downing would love a couple weeks with everybody together. But again, is that even going to be Derrick Henry? Yeah, I don't know. So that's the thing. I mean, you're right. It's just the NFL and the attention and the fact that everything they do just gets more attention than what other leagues do the same thing, right? Yeah. But it is also like there's just a premium on these reps.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I'm not saying that there's zero concern on Ryan Tannehill. Like, he's got to take care of the ball. And that's one thing he's been very good at since he became quarterback of the Titans. I mean, there's a couple of picks you can point to here or there for Tannehill where you're just like, ooh, I don't know about that throw. By and large, he's been pretty great in his decision-making with the Titans. So I'm not overly concerned about it. I do wonder if the point you brought up about chemistry or lack thereof with some of these receivers, maybe that's what you're seeing him trying to work through at the moment.
Well, and also just remember too that right now, I mean, they're calling plays. They're going against a defense that knows what they're doing.
Yep.
I mean, they know each other, so there's a lot of familiarity. Which that could work either way. But on a Sunday, it's a specific game plan. There's specific matchups you're trying to get yourself to. There's certain players on the other side you're trying to victimize, and you've got all your guys, which, or you should. And if you do, then that offense is just gonna look totally different.
But Joe, the other part of this is the defense making plays that are available to them out there in training camp thus far as well. So how much credit do we give the defense at this point during the training camp, and what do we think is more likely? Could there be a defensive resurgence here in Nashville this year with this Titans football team, or could we be seeing Ryan Tannehill fall off a little bit? We'll get to all that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Talking Titans, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. By the way, make sure you're tuning in later in the show for your opportunity to join our Fantasy Football League. We're putting together a Robby and Rexrode Fantasy Football League. Starting today, we'll throw out some trivia questions. If you correctly guess the answer on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, you will be eligible to join our Fantasy Football League. So if you don't get selected today, don't freak out. We'll have, I believe, 7 more opportunities after today. So
8 open spots.
8 open spots. We'll have 7 more opportunities after today, but somebody will be selected today. So looking forward to that. Make sure you stay tuned in. We've got a good trivia question coming up for you later today as well.
And they're all going to be show-related.
That is correct.
Trivia. So we're going to
show-related trivia.
We might, like what is intern Will's last name could be one.
Could be. Absolutely.
That would be an obscure one. That'd be a tough one.
That would be a tough one. Never know what's going to come out in the trivia questions. Make sure you stay tuned a little bit later today for our trivia question for fantasy football. Right now, talking Titans, taking your thoughts on the text line, 615-737-1025. We've just discussed Ryan Tannehill and the interceptions at training camp. So I guess the reaction that I've seen from Titans fans to that is kind of twofold, Joe. One, I have seen some concern about Ryan Tannehill, but not a ton. I mean, I think a lot of people are comfortable with Ryan Tannehill. They know how good he's been the last couple of years. I think more people have gotten excited about the defense and their ability to make plays so far in training camp. Obviously, it was a disaster last year. Very few plays were made by the defense. So to see them creating turnovers, playing much better so far in training camp, I think has gotten people excited. So I guess the question now is, what's the more likely scenario of what we've seen so far during training camp transpiring on the field? Is it more likely that the defense bounces back, and not just a little bounce back, improvement from last year, which we've talked about many times is not very hard to do? Could we see a significant rebound from this Titans defense? Is that more likely, or could we see Ryan Tannehill start to fall off a little bit from the level he's been the last couple of years, which has admittedly been one of the top levels of quarterback play in the entire league?
Well, it's a time for optimism. So, when things happen, fans want to believe, if one side of a team victimizes the other side of the same team, then fans want to think in terms of, okay, the side that succeeded is just good or better. But, if you're a cynic, you look at it the other way. And, so what's wrong with what's wrong with Tannehill? What's wrong with the offense? I mean, I think it's not likely that either thing happens. I don't think it's likely that Tannehill has a significant fall-off this year. I don't think it's likely that the defense has a massive, rebound to whatever that would be. What would be, top 10, top half of the league? I mean, I think that's asking a lot. But if you ask, which of those two is more likely, I would shade toward the defense. In the defense, look, I mean, Tannehill, it's 30-plus games. I mean, at this point, it's
a pretty large sample size.
Yeah, and that's fine if you're a Tannehill doubter, Tannehater, and you want to say, hey, you got to play better in the playoffs. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I'm not saying he's top tier, but I think you pretty much know what you have with him. It's hard for me to imagine he's going to come out this year and all of a sudden start arm punting the ball over the field. The defense could be terrible this year.
Yeah,
I mean, it really could, but at least there's a lot of variables there and a lot of things that could break the Titans' way that give you hope if you're a Titans fan and if you're in the building. And I do detect more than just coach speak, player speak. Yeah, it's going to be better. I mean, I think that there's legit excitement and that they are legit excited in those periods because they're hanging in right now and often winning. What does that mean when you play another team? I'm sure there's millions of examples in the NFL of a training camp defense or offense that looked great and then came out and didn't, But there are reasons to think it could be interesting. I start with one of the guys who talked yesterday, Danico Autry. I just think Danico Autry and Jeffrey Simmons together up front with the interior push, and we're going to have Shane Bone on later, but he was talking about that yesterday. If you get that, what that does to help your guys on the edge, pretty significant. And the fact that they're going to have Autry, I think the plan is, Autry will be on the field during passing downs. I think you're going to see, and that's another thing about camp that has been a good development for them, is that Tier Tart, one of the standouts, you might even go after Marcus Johnson. I mean, maybe. He's in that small group of daily, you notice him, Tier Tart. So you can maybe give Autry, some breaks and have him involved in the sub package. And like Bowen said, they really haven't had the big, long guy like that.
Yeah.
In that since he's been here, rushing. So maybe that helps them. I think Autry Simmons look like a good combo. Tart now as that third guy. And obviously Daquan Jones is a loss, but I mean I think Tart really brings something. And then that's all the the edge guys still are key. And I don't know, is Harold Landry, because he's not allowed to do his pass rush move that he loves, is that going to help him develop another one? He's been talking about developing another one for a while.
Yeah.
And then Bud Dupree. I mean, it still circles back to the big free agent they pay. Like he looks fast out there. I mean, talking to him, I mean, he's impressive. I mean, I think he's going to bring an attitude to this defense, and the way he plays is relentless. But is he going to be a game changer out there? I don't know.
Well, yeah, right.
It's possible.
Can it translate to production on the field? That's going to be the big question with Bud Dupree, because I said it yesterday. I think Bud Dupree can have impact not only with the pass rush. I think he's a very good run defender. I think he can create pressure that may not necessarily result in sacks. But when you get paid that much money, there's a sack number that needs to be there attached to it. In my mind, I just when you cross a certain threshold of money you're getting paid, there needs to be a total that goes along with it.
We had no question about it. We had a thing, at the Athletic. We do a lot of sort of like around the whole league. Everybody, writes, one player, from a division rival will be on your team or whatever. So one of them was, like worst move of the off season. And mine was the cornerback situation. You're cutting Adoree Jackson, you're cutting Malcolm Butler, and then you're drafting, a first-round pick who's had multiple back surgeries. But so I will say right now, I would change that answer now based on what I've seen in camp.
Yeah.
Because Farley's out there, and he's got a ways to go, and Byard talked about this. Byard was great yesterday, talking about, watch your body language. And Vrabel talked about this too. You make a mistake, that's going to happen a bunch.
Right.
So get up and keep it going. He's going through the rookie stuff, but, man, he looks like a guy. Fulton, Fulton, I think, has built momentum in camp. Jenkins is going to be solid, and, then in the slot's going to be interesting. But, they look better in that secondary than I anticipated going into camp. So I would change that answer now because I feel like they will be better. They're not going to have like a Jonathan Joseph out there this year.
We hope.
Just serving as well. It would take serious injuries.
Yeah.
Just a guy who just can't play anymore.
Yeah.
They've
by the way,
they've strengthened that.
Well, there was concern about
I'm
that.
confident in saying that now.
There's concern about that when the signing was made about Jackrabbit Jenkins, right? He's 32 years old. He'll be 33.
He can still run.
Looks like he can still run out there.
Yeah, and who knows how long that lasts. Sometimes it goes fast, but yeah, he's not like some lockdown star corner, but he can play. They're going to be, if these guys are healthy, better. And again, the depth is pretty good. Chris Jackson right now, if they started the season today, Chris Jackson is their starting slot corner.
Yep.
Now, I know fans are like, I don't want to hear that. I want Farley out there. I want Molden out there. And then that, may happen at some point. But it's still good to have a veteran like that doing what he's doing. And Borders doing what he's doing. Now you feel like, okay, you can survive an injury or two. It's a better group.
Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Got a texter that says, I think Ryan Tannehill is going to have a down year this year. I don't think he wanted to take the pay cut to bring in Julio, and I think he wanted to ride with the guys he already had. Just an assumption on my part.
He didn't take a pay cut. He did not take a pay cut.
That is correct.
They actually, he got more money up front.
Yeah.
The way they did it. It's just they just moved the cap hit around. So I don't buy that. That's no factor.
I'm sure you wanted Julio.
Yeah, if you're Ryan Tannehill. So more money now, and I'm throwing to Julio. I don't know about that. Now, could he have a down year? He could. He is. The bar is high. So
oh yeah.
So Tannehill could play like he did in Miami, which actually had some pretty good years, and that would be a step down.
Yeah.
It's possible. It's also possible that he has a lot of fun this year with the guys he's throwing to.
Ben texting in, Joe's best guess at Farley's second contract. A blind guess with the information you have.
What?
He wants you to predict right now Farley's second contract with the Titans.
Matthias? I think he'll get another year next year.
Yes, Matthias Farley.
So is this asking like what the number would be?
Yeah, I guess.
Well,
it's impossible to answer at the moment.
I have no idea. Where's the cap going? How's he play? I mean, I assume
Can
this
he
is.
still be on the field by then?
Will they pick up his option?
Yeah.
I mean, John Robinson hasn't picked up a lot of options of his first-round guys. Caleb Farley, he looks like a guy. We'll see. He's making mistakes right now. Like I said earlier, Mason Kinsey torched him yesterday. But, that's one of those things where, corners are going to get beat all the time. But he looks like he could be pretty good.
Tim from Lewisburg texting in, does Rexrode know that he owes Adam Vingan a gift card of his choosing since he bailed on Vingan yesterday? Did you know this?
Did this whole Vingan gift card thing, did he get his gift card from Darren?
No.
Ryan gave it to
Porth
him.
gave him one.
I don't even really understand the whole story. What gift card to where?
I don't know what the original gift card was supposed to be for, but he never got it. And Darren apparently one time sent it through the mail, air quotes, sent it through the mail,
Right.
and it never arrived at Vingan's house, and then he moved.
Gift cards in the mail.
It was just this whole to-do, yeah.
Okay, I'll get him a gift card, but I'm gonna have to think of the proper.
Well, Vingan was.
It's like to the UNC fan store or something,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was upset that you weren't here yesterday. I'll say that.
Yeah, sorry, Vingan. I listened. It was an
Exactly.
enjoyable segment.
It was. Vingan, a little upset that you bailed on him, though.
I'm sorry, Adam.
Duty calls.
He's not listening right now.
Probably not.
He's not up yet.
Probably asleep at this point. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Titans and look at this roster a little bit more in depth. Start making some cuts as well. We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 2 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, intern Will, here with you on this Wednesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. So, Joe, you brought up some names so far during Titans training camp, which have taken people by surprise. Matthias Farley being one of those names. Marcus Johnson on a daily basis at this point, impressing at Titans training camp. Chester Rogers as well. Guys that you're talking about that pretty much nobody expected to be talking about heading into Titans camp. But what about some guys that maybe had some buzz heading into Titans camp that have not had the camps that we've expected up until this point? Is there anybody that stands out in that area that's not been as good or as consistent as you would have hoped so far during Titans training camp, albeit before a preseason game has been played to this point?
Yeah, I mean, if you talk about guys, who you just sort of penciled in as being on the roster who may not be on the roster, I mean, to me, it's all on offense. Like, I look at the defense, and there are some names rising up. I guess on defense, you could look at a Dane Cruikshank and wonder, with Farley taking advantage of his reps, and then sort of how do they would it come down to like a Breeze Cruikshank? The Breeze Cruikshank Farley trio is interesting.
Yep.
But on offense, that's where I see guys who going in, I'm like, that guy's in, that guy's in, that guy's in. Now I'm not so sure. Josh Reynolds, you start there. I mean, look, I think Josh Reynolds is gonna be on this team, and I think there's a good chance that when it's all said and done in a few weeks, it'll be clear he's a number 3 receiver, and life goes on. But he has been hurt. He's had, I think, different injuries. Again, a lot of tension on that PK Erasapol post about Josh Reynolds and his lack of explosiveness in a drill, and A.J. Brown got all mad about it. And A.J. Brown's right that he's dealing with something, but that doesn't help you, especially when other guys are playing so well. Josh Reynolds, you said it earlier in the show, he's not making a huge number this year. So I would put him I would call it a possibility. I don't think it's a very high possibility, but I think if things were to continue where he can't get fully healthy and he's really not making any kind of difference on the field, I mean, he's not going to be a special teams guy. At some point, it's possible that they could look elsewhere. So that would be my first one, and then I'd go Des Fitzpatrick. Now this one is, I think this is actually less likely, which is funny because, like, again, when Josh Reynolds was signed, he was basically the 2. 1 year, $1.75 million. It's not a huge deal, So it's not like cutting him. Yeah, I mean, you could do it. Des Fitzpatrick, you're going to cut your 4th-round pick? I have my doubts.
I do too.
There's another one. I mentioned McMath earlier. Could you get away with exposing McMath on waivers? Is there someone out there who's going to put McMath on their active roster? I don't know.
Well, is it a lot of that answer, though, how he performs in the preseason games? Like, if there's actual tape on him that other coaches can see and other GMs can see,
and they will,
and they'll see it, then I think that answer could change. But right now, no. I think the Titans could sneak him through and he could be on the practice squad.
So what about Des Fitzpatrick? I mean, it's not like Des Fitzpatrick has been bad, but he just hasn't stood out. He hasn't made a ton of plays, and they're just, like, again, Marcus Johnson, Chester Rogers, I'd start with those 2 guys. Let's take A.J. Brown out of the equation. Marcus Johnson has been the most consistent playmaker at receiver. Chester Rogers has been very good. And then I put Westbrook-Akina after that because of a recent surge. And McMath has kind of fallen off a little bit. And, again, it's also the reps. I mean, who's getting one's reps? Those guys I mentioned are getting a lot of them. Fitzpatrick, I think that there's a future for him. I think there's a lot to like. So I don't think the Titans want to mess around with exposing a 4th-round pick. But I'm just saying, that's one of those guys who I wouldn't even have thought about going into camp. And now it's like, gosh, is it possible to practice squad him? I know Jared has talked about, put him on IR, but I mean, he's not hurt. I mean, you could just make up an injury, I guess. That's I mean, I'm not saying it's
injury.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's never happened, but and then the third guy is Brian Hill, who I kind of put in as a lock. I like the signing, guy who's did some good stuff with the Falcons.
Yep.
Made sense as as sort of the real two to Henry. If you look at Evans as sort of like a different role, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure about Brian Hill. That may be a position where they go a little lighter and go a little heavier at receiver. If you're going to go heavier at receiver, you got to go lighter somewhere else, right? So I think Evans, I'm really interested to see how he performs Friday and beyond. I think he's going to get a fair amount of work. Honestly, he may be so important he doesn't get a ton. But McNichols is back, and they trust him. And Mekhi Sargent actually has been pretty good. Rookie, undrafted out of Iowa. I mean, it's one of those things where you look at him and it's like, well, it's good when you have guys at the bottom of the roster who get a ton of reps because you have to have guys who do that for you in camp. I'm not saying he's making the roster over Brian Hill. I'm just saying, like, he has looked pretty good. And Brian Hill is fine, but I could see this being Henry, Evans, McNichols, and Brian Hill out. And going in, I would have absolutely put Hill in, McNichols out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting now, too. I mean, if you're the Titans, and as you said, let's operate that they keep 7 wide receivers, which going into camp I wouldn't even have thought about. I think it's a legitimate possibility, maybe not a likelihood at this point, but I think a legitimate possibility that they do keep 7. Well, you've got to subtract from somewhere else at that point. And special teams, I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. We know that. But that puts guys like Brian Hill in danger of making the team, where typically you could find a role for some of those guys on special teams. And if you're keeping 7 wide receivers, it's got to come from somewhere else.
Another place it could come from is tight end, which leads into our next segment. And again, there's some give and take on this too. There are presumed locks who could be cut, and then there are people who you didn't even think about who might make the team.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into that coming up next a little bit. Rexrode has just thrown out there 2 guys we thought may be locks, or 3 guys that we thought may be locks heading into camp that may be in trouble at this point. What about guys completely off the radar that have made a name for themselves so far during training camp? We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode. But right now, though, also got to tell you about my friends at the FanDuel Sportsbook. And one of the cool things about FanDuel is they run great specials all the time. And one of those things that's coming up very quickly that I am very much looking forward to, MLB Field of Dreams. Brings me back to my childhood, Rexrode. Very much looking forward to that. And baseball does return to its roots coming up on August the 12th when New York plays Chicago in the cornfields of Iowa. Make the most out of this historic game with FanDuel Sportsbook's $5 Field of Dingers. Just bet $25 on a same-game parlay with at least 3 legs to unlock a $5 bonus for every home run hit during the game. And you can build that parlay your way. Home runs, strikeouts, money line, everything is on the table. So lock in your parlay and be a part of history on August the 12th. And if you haven't tried FanDuel Sportsbook yet, new users can place your first bet risk-free. That's right, new users can get up to $1,000 back in site credit if your first bet doesn't win. So just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and use promo code ROB so they know that we sent you. That promo code is Rob. You must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. Minimum bet of $25. Max bonus of $35. First online real money wager for risk-free bet. Refund and bonus issued is non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Got a gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. Tune in to Nashville Sounds Baseball tonight on ESPN 94.9 as the Sounds take on Louisville, the AAA affiliate of the Cincinnati Reds. Pre-game show with Jeff Him starts at 5:15, and the first pitch is at 5:30. Nashville Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9, presented by 312 Pizza Company and Farm Bureau Health Plans. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Talking Titans, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Got a texter that says, with the addition of the 17th game, are they not increasing the roster size this year? So NFL adding a 17th game, which Joe Rexrode just loves, continues to love here from the NFL. Are they adding to the roster of available players this year? And the answer is no, they are not.
They have the same rules they had last year. And I like the IR rules, for example. It's 3 weeks instead of the 8-week rule. If you put someone on that. But no, I mean it's not beyond 53. You do have there is a change though. They did expand it in a different way, right? Last year that I'm forgetting the exact details on, but it's still an active roster of 53.
Right, which when this goes where I think it's eventually heading with the NFL, which is 18 games, you have to expand the roster at that point. You can't be 53. And remember, it's 53, but it's 46 active on game day.
48.
48.
48.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that's got to be
I agree. Oh, for sure.
Extended.
Yeah, more opportunities for jobs if you're going to make these guys play more and more games in this era of player safety.
Yes, which
it's collectively bargained. So.
It is collectively bargained. Yeah. That is true. So I guess the players have nobody to blame but themselves on this, but that's where it's headed.
money eventually talks and wins.
It does.
In life. Pretty much. Yes.
That is for sure. Joe, last segment we talked about guys maybe heading into camp that you felt like were locks for this roster that may not be as training camp has gone on. Who are some guys that you've noticed so far in camp that were completely off the radar when camp began that now have a legitimate chance at making this team, and maybe not only making the team, but making an impact with this team as well?
I guess I can't say Matthias Farley because he was on the radar a little bit going in, but I think he strengthened his position. I mean, I think he's got a chance. Preseason game's going to be huge for him. The position that is interesting in this regard, so going in, we were talking about these undrafted tight ends, Briley Moore, Jared Pinkney, Miller Forrestall. Tommy Hudson is a guy that I just sort of said, okay, he's a guy. Well, I think he's got a real chance to make this team. So I would lead off with him. Okay. He's got a real chance to make this team. And he may have had the catch of camp, by the way, which was Monday. That may have been the catch of camp. They one-handed, stretch out to bring the ball in. It was pretty impressive. And he's caught the ball pretty well. He's known, he's a blocking tight end, quote unquote, air quotes. But he looks pretty good running around and catching the ball. I think he's got a chance. Now, I also think it's possible that could be at the expense of someone you think will make the roster. Again, you talk about 7 receivers. Where are you going lighter? Is it possible they just go 3 tight ends? And it would be Firkser, Swaim, Hudson, or it may be that Hudson could be in there with Swaim and Stocker and Firkser. But I think Tommy Hudson has to be considered a real possibility. Trevon Coley. There's been a lot of guys rotating into that defensive line. I've noticed Coley quite a bit. Do the numbers work out that he could be on the active roster? I mean, I think it's a stretch, but I don't think it's impossible. I had Naquan Jones making it. I mean, right now I would
not to be confused with Daquan Jones.
Right, Naquan Jones, Spartan dog that he is.
That's right.
But I think Trevon Coley has a real chance. He's looked pretty good out there. And I'll throw out Jan Johnson. And the depth chart is, again, just be careful caring much about what the depth chart says. Jan Johnson right now is listed as a 2, and he has been out there getting reps. He's a Penn Stater linebacker U. He's a linebacker U guy. That Jan Johnson. And they're looking for 1 year in the league. They're looking for depth there. I still think ultimately that group is probably just going to be your 4 that we know about. Monty Rice and David Long backing up Evans and Brown, but Jan Johnson has at least made some kind of an impression. So of those who I named, I think definitely Tommy Hudson is the most likely. And tight end is interesting. I don't see Pinckney and Forrestall. I don't know. I think Bradley Moore, before he had the serious knee injury, was a guy who had a real shot.
Well, we've had a lot of Vanderbilt fans ask us about Pinckney. Just has not stood out to this point in training camp.
He's dropped a lot of passes.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, he moves pretty well, and he can put himself in position to make plays, but he has squandered too many. Now, I will say last year, the guy who was just blatantly dropping everything was Nick Westbrook-Akina.
I think TD said one time that he was in physical combat with the football last year.
Exactly. And look where he is now. So, but that's also a special teams thing, and that's where sometimes we sit there and focus on these guys in obviously in scrimmage, in offense versus defense. There are times where someone is so good in the kicking game that it just the other stuff matters less, but I don't think that's going to be a Pinckney. So, yeah, I think Tommy Hudson definitely would be someone a number 89 out there. You notice him a lot, and he's earned his way to a pretty good role. So, the tight end position, I still would say John Robinson could easily go out there and find a veteran, but I think that position, a little bit like, the corners, looks a little bit more stable to me than it looked a couple weeks ago.
Is Luke Stocker a lock in your mind to make this team?
I wouldn't say a lock. And that's why, again, that could be right there. Do you want to go with the younger guy who you might be able to have a little more time with? I like the pickup of Stocker. You're talking about a big guy who's played a lot of football, but again, talking about a guy who's also been in the league 11 years. So Tommy Hudson, 10 years younger, also a big guy. They're both basically 6'5", 255. I could see Hudson beating out Stocker.
Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Will from Nashville texting in. Thanks for the update on Pinckney. I'm a Vanderbilt fan, also an SEC fan. What are Forrestall's limitations? Just curious. He seemed like a force in college, but I realize it's a different ballgame here in the NFL.
Well, here's the thing, and this is another part about this that's difficult. Well, it's really difficult if you're trying to figure out if somebody can tackle.
Right.
There's no tackling. Really, even when they're in full pads, no one's taking anybody to the ground. Now, there is blocking. I'm not going to say I've seen anything from Forrestall where I was like, ooh, that's not good. He just hasn't stood out, and he's not getting opportunities that tell you that he's standing out to the coaches either.
Right.
But watch him Friday night. I bet you Miller Forrestall gets a whole bunch of snaps on Friday night, and that's a situation that could help him. I'm not totally ruling him out, but Tommy Hudson, I think clearly is ahead of him, and I think Tommy Hudson fills the blocking aspect of it. He's a much bigger guy than Forrestall. He's almost 20 pounds heavier. He's 16 pounds heavier. And I feel like, I think Bradley Moore if he was going to make this team, it was because it's another guy who's more of a receiver than a blocker at tight end. But it just still feels like this room's going to be Ferkser and the blockers.
Jeff Swain was listed as the number 1 tight end.
I do know this.
On the unofficial depth chart.
Yes.
You know what this means?
Position groupings.
This means that it's time once again for you to come out with another 53-man roster. I set the over-under at 3.5. So we need to get to 2.
Yeah.
So it may be time for you to do us all a service and come out again with another 53-man roster. Maybe after the preseason game.
Well, I was thinking about doing it after the preseason game, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do.
You're ruining my over/under.
I'm sorry. I'm going to do risers and fallers. How about that?
Can I count that as the same thing?
If you want, but I'm not going to do the whole 53. Sorry.
I'm very disappointed in you.
Sorry, man.
When we come back, we will continue the discussion on the AFC South, including a surprise at the starting quarterback position yesterday in the division. We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Konezovic, intern Will here with you on this Wednesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Titans defensive coordinator Shane Bowen coming up to begin the 8 o'clock hour, so looking forward to that here on the show. Got the Choice is Yours coming up next as well, so a lot coming your way. Encourage your participation on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Ron texting in. Let me say I love you guys in the show, but let the trash talk begin. You guys better pray I don't know any of the trivia questions for this fantasy league you guys are starting up. I'm going to try to make the league. Ron, getting in there.
Bring it, Ron.
Already with the trash talk.
Bring it, Ron.
Ron, you got to get in on make sure you get the trivia question.
So,
which we'll have one a little bit later here in the show, maybe even next hour.
And for the draft, so the draft is going to be September 9th. We've established that? Pretty much.
I think, yes.
That's Wednesday. The opener, what is it, Cowboys-Bucks?
Yeah.
Thursday Night Football next night?
Yes.
Thank goodness we get the Cowboys.
Thank God the Cowboys are on TV.
God, do I get HBO back again now that the Cowboys are on Hard Knocks?
I'm not.
Yes.
Yeah?
I'm not.
HBO is so worth it.
Yeah. I think I do want it for Succession when it comes back, so maybe, I bet I'm sick of the Cowboys. We need some Vrabel on there.
We do.
One of these years.
Yeah, we do.
But yeah, September 9th, and we don't have a place. Well, we do, but it's not official. But I would say if you want to be in this league too and you want to come, it's probably going to be in my neck of the woods. I mean, kids have school. It's a school night for the kids.
That's right.
So
around the Nolensville area.
Yeah.
So,
where, the Little League baseball capital of the world, Nolensville, Tennessee.
that is
Thank
correct.
you very much.
We can probably accommodate if you can't make it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have something in place for people who can't, and frankly, it might just be you auto draft and you just suck it up, buddy. But we'll figure something out if you can't make it.
We will.
But we want you to come.
We would like you to be there.
So we'd like you to come. So think about that area of town, and if that's feasible for you.
Absolutely.
On a Wednesday night.
Exactly.
But the place that we have in mind is great.
Exactly. We'll have that coming up for you a little bit later in the show, the trivia question. Your first of 8 opportunities to get in on the Robby and Rexrode Fantasy Football League. So looking forward to that. Ron has already begun the trash talk. Speaking of trash talk, Titans fans getting excited yesterday when reports came out of Colts camp. Sam Ehlinger with the ones at Colts camp yesterday, taking reps as the starting quarterback. Obviously, Wentz is hurt. Jacob Eason has been taking the ones since Carson Wentz has been out there. But Sam Ehlinger moving ahead of Eason yesterday at camp. I don't know if it's a permanent thing, but he was taking some snaps with the number 1 team. Is Sam Ehlinger going to be the starting quarterback for the Colts?
No, but I mean, that's quite an indictment of Jacob Eason. I'm sorry. Sam Ehlinger, to me, was always, how there's some college quarterbacks who are good college quarterbacks, but you just know that's just not going to work in the NFL.
Yes.
And Sam Ehlinger, to me, is exactly that guy.
Now, I say that.
Tim Tebow, frankly, I looked at him. I think he's not going to be a good NFL quarterback. Sorry.
Well, Nathan Peterman somehow has found his way into the NFL, which
That's fair.
Is against all odds. But yeah, I hear you.
And just so no, I mean, he's a rookie, and he's just I don't even get the pick, but the fact that he has already surpassed, maybe it's just a motivational thing, but it just speaks to the situation they're in. It just reiterates really that they got to make a move unless they feel great about Wentz being on the low end of that timeline.
Now, Carson Wentz was spotted yesterday with no boot at Colts training camp, so no walking boot for Carson Wentz. So I don't know what that means. I have no clue what that means. I'm just saying that there was a big deal made yesterday of, I think Quentin Nelson was spotted with no walking boot as well. So maybe they just took the walking boot off and started going outside, see what happens here, just get around the media.
5 to 12 weeks, no boots. It's revolutionary foot care. I don't know, man.
It is. Maybe some good pedicures involved as well. Ben texting in on the
Are you
text
listening,
line.
Heidi?
Don't discount the Colts signing a veteran like Alex Smith before the season starts.
Ooh.
According to reports in Indy, Carson was spotted walking around normally with no boot in his foot yesterday, so he could be back sooner than Titans fans anticipate. So there it is. No boot for Carson Wentz. What do you think about maybe Alex Smith being signed? Isn't he retired?
Yeah, and what an incredible story that he ever came back. And
Yes.
he was, all things considered.
He was good, all things considered.
But I hadn't thought about that one. I mean, look, there are probably worse things you could do. Does he have any desire to keep playing this game right now? The guy has went through so much. It almost felt like it was like, prove to yourself that you can do this to get back.
And then he did.
But you got a life and grandkids and things to think about too, right?
I know this. I watched the first couple of series last year when he came back in for the first time, and I was an absolute nervous wreck watching him play quarterback. Now, obviously, he was cleared to be out there, but I can only imagine what that's like for his family watching him play quarterback, given everything he had to go through to get back on the field.
Yeah, no doubt.
So if I felt that way, I wonder what they feel like. Because I don't know Alex Smith. But, man, it was stressful to watch. The first time he got hit, I was like, oh, my goodness, please get up. And he did, but
of course, you also like, who's the defensive player then who's going to be the jerk who like really rings his bell?
That,
but yeah, it was a great story. I suspect it's over for him in the NFL. Still waiting on Mariota.
What if they don't make a move and it's Eason and or Ellinger for the first couple of weeks of the season?
Well, they're going to lose. They're going to lose.
Yes.
They're playing good teams.
That's the thing. Like the first 5 weeks of the season for them, it's a really tough schedule, including the Titans in that mix as well. I think week 3.
And that's why I think you're really gambling if you're Chris Ballard. And he obviously has more information, and maybe the information is really positive. But if it's not like, oh, yes, he's going to be raring to go, then I just think you got to make a move really quickly here, don't you?
I would think so.
Because you have to try to not be in a massive hole by the time October comes. Because if you are, I don't think you're going to catch the Titans, and you probably aren't going to make the playoffs.
By the way, this just now coming out from Chris Mortensen from ESPN. The Colts have signed GM Chris Ballard and head coach Frank Reich, each to contract extensions through the 2026 season. So
wow.
Ballard and Reich contract extensions through 2026. Apparently Jim Irsay likes the job they're doing.
Well, Chris Ballard is just a genius. You know, that's all I hear.
They don't currently have a quarterback, but yeah.
I am signing up for every time the Colts come to town, being about 4 or 5 seats away from Chris Ballard and just hearing him scream the whole game. It's amazing. It's fantastic. I mean, he complains about every single call.
Yeah.
Just the whole game. It's great.
I don't think he's unique in that regard. I've been around some coaches. It's interesting.
Well, he's unique, and the NFL is very strange how they do it. But a lot of times, the visiting media sits with like the team executives, or they sit like the row. So a lot of games, like John Robinson's directly behind us.
Yeah.
John Robinson. I mean, here and there, it's like a you get a little pump
pound the table.
But I mean, he's quiet watching a game, and most GMs that I've noticed are pretty much like that too. Chris Ballard lets it rip, man. He is something else. So good job, Colts. I don't know that he's the absolute, world-class GM everybody thinks he is. He's done a good job.
He's done a good job.
He's done a very good job. Quarterback thing's kind of big, though.
Yeah.
It's not his fault that the whole Andrew Luck thing went the way it did, but I don't know. They're in a precarious spot, I think, a little bit. Even if Carson Wentz comes back this year, I just don't buy him as the long-term answer.
I don't either. And then the question becomes, with that roster, if Wentz is not the long-term answer, what do you do at that point? I mean, you've got to draft somebody, but their roster is good enough where they're probably not going to be bad enough to be in the top 10 drafting, would be my guess.
So is there a trade possibility? I mean, they have cap space, they have draft capital. Is there a trade that could be engineered? It's just
with who?
Who are we talking about?
Yeah.
Could they get your guy?
Rodgers? I doubt it. I don't know if
next year.
I don't know if he's going to the Colts.
Yeah,
maybe. I don't know.
I mean, if I'm him, I see opportunity to win there.
I see opportunity to win.
Draft another receiver.
Yeah. I think he might be looking out west a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because he wants to live out there.
Yeah.
So you're talking about Denver. You still think he'll end up being in Denver?
I would keep, Denver on the list. It's going to be interesting, too. Like, if you've got – I think a team like the 49ers is very interesting. You've got Jimmy G. We know what he is. Like, what if Trey Lance just isn't ready yet? With the window you've got right now with this group, does Rodgers make sense for a year or two?
God. Rodgers on that team? That's scary.
I know. That's just something I've been thinking about because that would cause me the most pain. Be bad.
Yeah, you want him at least to go AFC.
Yes, it would.
Titans fans don't like the idea of him in Indy.
That would not be fun going from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck with a small break and then Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, even old Aaron Rodgers.
Yes. Still plays at a pretty high level. When we come back, time for The Choice is Yours here on Robby and Rexrode. Joe Rexrode in the questions chair today. Encourage your participation as well on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, intern Will here with you on this Wednesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. And it's that time of the week. Time for The Choice is Yours here on Robby and Rexrode. Joe Rexrode back in the questions chair today. Joe Rexrode, without further ado, I turn things over to you.
All right. Let's do this. Sports or non-sports?
Let's go non-sports. Let's start with non-sports today.
All right. So, you have no supplies.
Okay.
You have only your wits about you.
All right.
And you must survive 3 miles of terrain. Are you choosing the middle of the Sahara Desert, the middle of the Pacific Ocean, or the middle of the Amazon?
Oh, man. I'm going to go with the Amazon. Now, that's a tough choice because there are many things in the Amazon that can kill you, including like disease from mosquitoes. There are a lot of things you have to navigate through. But number one, I'm not swimming that long in the Pacific Ocean. It's just not going to happen. The desert is tempting, but that's a lot of way with no water. At least in the Amazon, you've got a chance to find water and usable water. You can build yourself a fire, maybe boil that water a little bit to get to where it's actually drinkable, and you don't have to worry about it being contaminated. Give me the Amazon, even though I would have to craft a weapon very quickly to fend off like a wayward leopard or something like that.
Wayward Leopard. That should be the name of our fantasy league.
Really should be.
Okay.
Might be my team name.
This is a good one. I was just thinking, well, I'm definitely not a strong swimmer, so I wouldn't be able to do the ocean. The Amazon, I'm afraid of snakes and bugs and all of that, and I feel like I would just, I'd be like eaten alive, so I would not be able to do that. So I think I'm going to pick the desert. I mean, I guess I would just think I'm in a sauna and pretend I'm there, and hopefully somebody would fly over me and save me.
Yeah.
Write out SOS in the sand.
I'm actually really, I was worried that we were all going to have the same answer. It was going to be a no-brainer. To me, it's a slam dunk. It would be the desert, too. The ocean is close for me. I mean, I think I could do 3 miles of swimming, but that doesn't sound appealing. I wouldn't even think about the Amazon. I mean, good for you crafting a weapon and a fire and everything. I mean, snakes are my number one just worst thing in the world, plus all the other crap that's in there. So, yeah, give me the desert.
But also
3
more
miles.
opportunities in there if you're able to successfully craft a weapon.
Yeah, I mean,
There's
that's
a food source there as well.
Yeah. You sound like Dwight Schrute. Like,
Yeah, man.
I will kill them with my crafted weapon,
Yes.
the wayward leopard. All right.
Look, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
That's right. Okay, sports. You can take any NFL, NBA, MLB, or NHL player whose prime took place before 1980 and see how that player does in today's game.
Oh,
Who are you choosing? And I had a lot of – I'm not even sure my answer yet because I have a lot of possibilities. But, go with your first instinct, just like on a standardized test.
Bart Starr.
Another Packers quarterback.
Give me Bart Starr. I'd
Okay.
love to well, he's a great quarterback, obviously. But I would just love to see, like, obviously the game was played so much differently there. Like, go back and watch the offense that Bart Starr ran. You wouldn't even –
Student body right, student body
Yeah, I was about
left.
to say, people just have no clue what that is today. So I would love to see in a league where the forward pass is not only encouraged, it's just the way to win now. What could a guy like Bart Starr do? Like even, Johnny Unitas threw the ball around a little bit more, but I would like to see him in the modern day as well. But I'll go Bart Starr.
Yeah, Johnny. Yeah, that's another one. That's a good point. Like in these offenses, how good would those great quarterbacks from them be? Maybe they'd be just winging it around, just like I don't know. I mean, everybody's bigger, stronger, faster. But yeah, that's an interesting one. Michelle.
I thought
Okay, I was just looking up because I get my time, all messed up, the 80s and all that. I'm going to choose Dennis Johnson from the Boston Celtics.
Oh, yes. Get in there and just cut
I
Rexrode
know,
deep.
I know Rexrode loves the Celtics, especially after our chat yesterday. Plus, I think basketball is so interesting because they play so. I mean, obviously, every sport has evolved so much since then, but basketball, it's just the NBA is such a different game than when it used to be.
Oh, yeah.
Dennis Johnson sucks. Sorry.
I
hated that guy.
A lot of hostility for the Boston
I
Celtics.
hate all. I mean, I didn't hate him as much as Danny Ainge. the most hateable player of all time, probably. I mean, like Bill Laimbeer is like a
Big Tennessee
a
Vols fan.
sweetheart compared to Danny Ainge.
Big Tennessee Vols fan, Danny Ainge.
Yeah,
His nephew. Used
that's
to play
right, because
quarterback.
Eric played there. Right,
Yes.
right. Yeah, it doesn't change anything for me. So names that I came up with were Jim Brown, Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth. I'd love to see Wilt Chamberlain today. Like, would he dominate inside? Bill Russell. Is Oscar Robertson the all-around great player? But my choice is Gordie Howe. I'd love to just see Gordie Howe and how he would translate. Obviously, Gordie Howe played in like 6 decades anyway, or
like
whatever.
He was like 70.
Yeah, and he was still like able. But if you put Gordie Howe, production line prime in the 50s, would he be a great player in today's NHL? Like, I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, everybody, again, bigger, stronger, faster, all that stuff. That someone like that, Jim Brown too. Like, what would Jim Brown be? Just like another power back, or would he be great today? I suspect with a lot of these guys, it wouldn't be as good as you would hope, because it's just, I mean, things have progressed so much. But then, like baseball, maybe it would translate more. I don't know.
Got the one guy I considered in the NBA, Jerry West. I was thinking about Jerry West. Yeah? I'd love to see what he would look like in today's game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
With all those guys, of course, they didn't have the 3-point shot.
They did not.
So
well, we got votes for Pete Maravich on the text line as well.
That's a great call.
Yeah.
That would be fascinating. All right, non-sports. Now, the last two, you're both getting $10 million at stake, okay? So, non-sports. You get $10 million if you confront one concert as the lead vocalist for any band, and it could be a solo artist too, replace a solo artist, in the world, and keep from getting booed off the stage. So you can't be garbage. Like, you have to somehow replicate this singer.
Okay.
Who's your choice?
Well, I'm going to take kind of a different route here. To not get booed off the stage also, I think, requires a nice audience. So the most friendly audience I've ever been in front of in a concert, Bob Seger. Everybody in there was like 75 years old, and they were just having a good time being there. So I would front a Bob Seger song thinking that it may not be very good, but they're not going to boo me. So give me the $10 million. Bob Seger.
Interesting. I'd love to go to a Bob Seger show.
So
I brought the average
I'm
age
not that
down.
old.
I brought the average age down in there pretty significantly.
Oh, man.
I started laughing back here as soon as you said that question, Rexrode, because I always tell people in another life I'd be a pop star if I could actually sing. And I'm going to go with Taylor Swift only because I know the words. And I feel like I could just be entertaining up there, even though I probably wouldn't sound good. But, the dancing, the whole pop star thing, I feel like I could take the 10 mil and not get booed off.
That's the thing, though. Those Taylor Swift fans are intense.
Oh, they are. Yeah.
There's a high bar that's been established.
I would just put my mic out there and be like, "You guys sing the words. You got this."
That's a good audience participation. Yeah, that's a good yeah. That's a high bar, and of course it's Robbie Stanley's childhood friend Taylor Swift. I mean, that's
All
right,
have it in there.
It's an easy choice for me. It's the Doors.
Okay.
I mean, first of all, like Jim Morrison, when he actually was doing concerts, was just hammered and out of sorts anyway. Like, and so was his audience.
Well,
so I'm going back in time to it's like, hey, whatever, right?
Yes.
And plus, I mean, I actually on our honeymoon, I actually did karaoke and sang "L.A. Woman" to Katie.
Really?
So. About an hour ago. See, that's all I gotta do. Just wind, bro.
I thought you would go Creed because I think you could do a pretty good Scott Stapp impersonation.
I could,
and I feel like
you would totally enjoy
it.
Yeah. Now that's true. It would pain me so much to sing like 3 bars, and then I would probably start faltering. So, all right, sports, another $10 million. And this is with our next guest coming. This works out well to lead into this.
Yes.
You must become Shane Bowen or Todd Downing this season.
Okay.
So this is like Freaky Friday a little bit, right? Except they don't become you. They just go into the upside down or something. I don't know. But you become them for the year.
Fade away.
Yeah. They have to they're just loitering somewhere.
Yes.
You get $10 million if you can do the job well enough to not be fired at the end of the season.
Okay.
Whose life do you take over?
Shane Bowen.
I'm going Todd Downing.
Why?
Well, Number one, I think offensive coordinator sounds like the funnest job coaching-wise in pro sports anyway. So, it's also a lot of pressure. I realize that. But I would love to draw up some plays for A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, and Derrick Henry. So I feel much more confident about my ability to draw some things up that way than I would having Bud Dupree relying on him to get 12 sacks and drawing up some blitzes. So, yeah, give me Todd Downing.
Okay.
Every day of the week.
And why Bowen?
I feel like there's a little bit less pressure. So honestly, the same
there is
reason,
that.
just opposite Robby. And plus, I feel like even just throughout camp, the defense has been a little bit more promising. And, I feel like all the pressure goes on the offense a lot of times. And then if they're not doing good, then it's just your head on the chopping block.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going Bowen too. I think that, calling plays, that's defensively you got to call plays both sides. But I feel like defensively you're more reacting to the situation. You don't have to script things. I just feel like, I'm not saying it's easier. It's also you're not under as much scrutiny on a moment by moment basis as the DC. And to your point, I just feel like this defense has a chance to be okay, and then you're fine. But like if the offense is significantly down, which a lot of things could lead to that, I just feel like that could be a 1 year, okay. And he had a bad year earlier, and
Just give me the weapons.
yeah.
Just give me the weapons.
I hear you.
I can draw some things up.
You can draw some things in the dirt there.
I played a lot of Madden. We can draw some things
Do a little
up.
Z route.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That is today's edition of The Choice is Yours. Well done. Had a lot of participation on the text line. Unfortunately, we don't have very much time to get to many of those. But
We'll get to you later.
We'll get to you a little bit later. Coming up in the show, we're going to have Titans defensive coordinator Shane Bowen joining us next. We'll do that coming up. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com. Here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, intern Will here with you on this Wednesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, talking Titans. And to help us do that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Titans defensive coordinator Shane Bowen. Shane, what's going on, man? How we doing?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. How are y'all?
Doing great. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning. Shane, just for starters, what's camp been like from your vantage point thus far? Obviously, with the preseason game coming up on Friday, some light starting to get to the end of the tunnel in terms of going up against another team at this point. But just what has the process been like for you in the defense thus far?
Yeah, I mean, I've been encouraged with how things have been going. I think we've had some good energy on our side of the ball. We've been competitive. Obviously, there's always going to be a little bit back and forth with us in the offense. I think, like you mentioned, to be able to go and compete against somebody else this week, we're kind of getting to that point, man. We've been going at it for 11 days versus the same guys. So I think everybody's excited for the opportunity come Friday. But pleased with where our guys are at right now. I mean, we still got a long way to go, but I think they're improving daily as individuals, as a unit. We just got to make sure we continue on that trend. We got a long time till that first game, and we just got to make sure we keep pushing buttons and making sure we're good wherever we need to be.
How much more information are you going to have, Shane, at the end of these three preseason games, plus the practices with the Bucs, than you did a year ago after camp? And how much of these games are you looking for? I know you know more and more in this league, and I know Mike Vrabel is not a big believer in playing starters a ton in these games, but how much are you still trying to get some chemistry built when you can with your key guys in those games?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I'm looking forward to these opportunities. We missed out on them last year. I think from an evaluation standpoint, they're huge. Guys under the lights, seeing what they do is a lot different than we go out here to practice and everything's scripted. Like, they got to be able to go play the game and understand situations as they unfold. The chemistry part is big. Like, anytime we go on the field, whether it's practice, whether it's walkthrough, whether it's a preseason game, a real game, like, we have our core beliefs, our culture, what we believe in. Like, we want to see those things on the field. We want to see the things we've been emphasizing in terms of third down, red zone, turnovers. All those things should carry through regardless of whether it's a real game, whether we're out in practice, preseason, whatever it might be. And again, we got some new guys too. So that's a piece. We got a lot of new guys on defense. So being smart with how we use them in the preseason, obviously. But at the same time, I do think the chemistry, actually going out there and doing it against somebody else, I think that's a piece.
Shane, obviously Titans fans very excited to see Caleb Farley in training camp as early as he was. What have been your initial impressions of working with Caleb Farley, and what have you seen from him on the field thus far?
Yeah, he's working his way back. I've been encouraged with him. I really have. I think he's learning something new every single day. I mean, it's been a while since he's played last, so just really honing in on his technique and fundamentals. Like, it's more than just ability once you get to this level. Everybody's got ability. So just making sure he's playing with the techniques and fundamentals and learning them first and foremost, and then becoming more consistent with them as he goes. But it's a process, just like for any other rookie. It's a process. It's going to take some time. And he just got to keep working, keep learning, take everything in. I think having Jackrabbit in the room, in the corners room, has helped him tremendously. Just being able to bounce everything off him, and Rabbit's always in his ear on different things. So I'm pleased with where he's at right now. He's got to keep going. Got a long way to go still, and we'll kind of see as we get closer where he's at with everything.
Yeah, as an outsider, just standing on the sideline, Shane, a couple of things that have struck me so far. Depth in two spots, a D-line and then at corner. It seems like guys who, wouldn't necessarily be penciled in as starters or even necessarily key players keep showing up day after day. Do you look at it that way? Like, do you feel better about the groups there? And specifically, I know you talked some about Tier Tart, but he seems like a guy who maybe one of the few players every day this camp. It seems like you see something from him. Is that your view as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that D-line group has been really good up to this point. I think it's a competitive group. I think across the board from front to back, all those guys bring something to the table, and they're battling. Like, that's what it is this time of year. You're competing not only to improve, but you're competing for a job, right? Like, everybody's competing for a job. They're trying to make the team. And I'm really pleased with that group. They go to work every day. They're trying to do the things we coach them to do. As far as Tierre, I think he's taken a big stride just in terms of the off season, the way he approached the off season, coming into training camp. As we've talked about before, man, that year 1 to year 2, it's a big time for all these guys, from rookies to that second year. Like, that off season is huge in terms of development. They come in year 2 and everything's kind of slowed down. They kind of know what they're walking into every day, and there can be a little bit more focus on the technique, fundamentals of football, all the stuff that comes into it, other than I got to be here, I got to do this, I got to do that, all the stuff that's not really football related, right? But pleased with Tierre. I think him and Murch, they worked together all off season. It has shown up to this point. And then in terms of the corner room, like, those guys are competing. Like, that's the one thing that stands out to me. They're challenging. They're playing tight in coverage. They're finding ways to get their hands on balls, and they're competing regardless of who's out there for us, who's out there for them. Those guys are trying to not let guys catch balls on them, and they're challenging every opportunity they get.
Titans defensive coordinator Shane Bowen on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And Shane, obviously a lot was made this offseason about you being given the official title of defensive coordinator, and you addressed that earlier in camp already. I'm curious, though, just what did you learn the most about your group last year, you as a coach, and what do you think is going to serve you well in that regard as you move as officially the Titans defensive coordinator this year?
Yeah, I think this year's been dramatically different up to this point. I think the biggest thing for me, as we've kind of gotten into this thing in the spring and coming into training camp, is the relationships, right? Like, making sure I'm around all these guys every opportunity I get, and building these relationships across the board, where I'm able to go into every room, every individual drill, whatever it might be, and, like, I can talk to these guys, I can coach these guys. Like, ultimately, and it's a cliche, but everybody knows, like, as long as you show them that you care, like, they're going to work their ass off for you. So I think the relationship piece is huge in that regard. Just getting to know these guys, letting them get to know me a little bit more, right? I think that's one thing that I learned last year a little bit. I don't think it was there. And I think that's been a big emphasis for me personally as we kind of started to get going here. And it's a process. Like, it's still going on. We're still growing. We're still learning each other. But I think it's on the right track right now.
Beyond that, once you get into the season, Shane, of course, again, you aren't coaching outside linebacker, so obviously that'll be different. But anything else different in terms of the preparation for an opponent because of the change for you, or will that be the same?
Yeah, no, it will. It will be different. Like, we got other pieces. I mean, some of the same stuff will come into play, but just in regards to time, some of that other stuff, when we go to game plan, figuring out what we want to do, I think there's a lot of things that will be a little bit different. We kind of have our structure within our staff of how we go about game planning. I don't know if that's going to change a whole lot. I mean, we've added some pieces which should help us. Obviously, adding shorts too. I think that's going to be a big piece as we get into game planning and doing some of those things. But really, everybody's kind of got their role, right? And then we come together as a staff and we figure it out and kind of go from there. What we feel we can do best against a certain opponent based on who our players are at that given week.
Shane, how big of a loss was Jayon Brown last year in terms of just the different things he's able to do and the versatility that he brings to the table, and how big was it for your defense to get him back into the fold this year?
Yeah, I mean, I love Jayon. I'm excited about Jayon. He comes to work every day. He's a happy dude. Like, he works hard. He doesn't come in here pouty ever. Like, he's the same guy every day. I think that's the kind of stuff, regardless of his play, right? Regardless of his play on Sundays, just that day in and day out, being that guy, the same guy every day. I think all of us coaches really appreciate that. I think the players appreciate that. So you miss that a little bit. But being able to get him back has been tremendous. Like, he's taken the next step. He's taken on more of a leadership role, and then all the versatility he has on the field that allows us to do some things. But I'm pleased with that group right now. I think Rashawn's getting better. I think David Long's had a really good camp up to this point. Monty's learning every day, like all the other rookies. So I'm pleased with that group where we're at. So we'll see. But, yeah, really excited about JL.
Shane, we got Kevin Byard yesterday, and I mean, he's always very insightful. He was talking about Caleb Farley, and hey, you make a mistake, that's this league. Like, think about your body language. You just have to get right back up and get out. And Vrabel talked about that the other day too. I was thinking about with Byard. Obviously last year, I mean, the storyline is Byard had a down year, and he wants to bounce back from that. I'm just wondering, is that your assessment too? Or was Kevin sort of, because the things were, the quarterbacks weren't affected, maybe the corner play wasn't what you wanted, that maybe he suffered as a result? I mean, how do you view his individual season, and what do you think you're going to get from him this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything is unit-based. I really do. Like, there's times where there's one-on-one matchups, whether it's corner, whether it's rushing, at times safety, where things happen, you either win or you lose, right? But, I mean, I think a lot of things are correlated, whether it's the front, the back end, everybody kind of affects each other. He's, without question, our leader on the defensive side, what he brings to the table in terms of communication, getting lined up, leadership, holding guys accountable. He is it for us between, I would say, him and Jeff and some other guys as they get acclimated. They're continuing to grow in those roles. But I'm excited where he's at right now. I really am. I think between it, with having Hooker out there doing some things, I think Kevin's done a great job in terms of helping Hook kind of understand the game and take his game to the next level. And I'm excited where it is. Like, I mean, turnovers, hopefully we continue to get them, and hopefully Kevin has a bunch of them this year, a bunch of picks, and he can make a bunch of plays on balls. But, I mean, you know how it goes. Like, they come in waves, and it's not always in the right spot for him. It could be somebody else, right? So, I mean, I'm expecting big things from him. He does a lot for us, play in and play out, that probably doesn't show up or nobody really sees at times. But I'm super excited he's here, and I'm pleased with what he's doing right now with the group, taking ownership, taking leadership. I'm excited to see what his season holds this year.
Titans defensive coordinator Shane Bowen has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Shane, great stuff, man. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning, and good luck as camp continues on here.
Awesome. I appreciate it, fellas. I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Shane Bowen, Titans defensive coordinator, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. We'll come back. We'll react a little bit to what Shane Bowen had to say there. Take your thoughts as well on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. This Friday, it's your chance to participate in the Nashville SC Pick to Click, brought to you by Camarena Tequila. If you guess correctly which player scores a goal in the game Sunday, you win a prize pack and a 4-pack of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game. Participate this Friday morning at 9:45. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Going to have Sheil Kapadia from The Athletic joining us in the next segment. We'll get into all things NFL with him, including some breaking news on the Indianapolis Colts front as well. So we'll get to all that coming up with Sheil Kapadia at 8:30. Right now, though, Joe Rexrode, the time has come for our first trivia question to join our Fantasy Football League. We have 8 spots available in our Fantasy Football League. We will be doing a trivia question for the next 8 days here on the show to fill up those spots, and the first one comes today. So if you know the answer to this trivia question, hit up our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Remember, it has to be the text line, so keep that in mind. Today's question is this. What word did Joe Rexrode mispronounce with Caleb Farley's injury? Dating back to the draft discussion around Caleb Farley, this was a big to-do. What word did Joe Rexrode mispronounce with Caleb Farley's injury in the draft coverage?
The questions are going to get harder from here.
They are going to get harder, but we figured we'd start with an easy one today. If you've listened to the show and put in some time, you know the answer. Hit up our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Good to have Shane Bowen on the show in the last segment. I thought his response to the question about just what he's learned transitioning from last year to this year in the defense and how much different this is actually having the title. I thought that was very interesting, his response there, and makes it seem like it's a ton different. It's night and day for Shane Bowen heading into this year than it was a year ago.
Yeah, and you think about, okay, responsibility, you take this off the plate, you have more room for other stuff. But the relationships part of it is interesting. I mean, look, his predecessor, Dean Pease, I firmly believe that, and I think this of Dick LeBeau too. I firmly believe that for both of them, part of their success had to do with really bonding with their players and like just having a great work environment. I mean, relationships, it's basically just translate it to any workplace, boss and employees who get along and are on the same page and communicate well, et cetera, et cetera. So it's harder to do if you're sort of still focused on one position group.
Yeah.
And then, he also brought up Jim Schwartz, which, and hey, good to have that guy in the room. If you're Shane Bowen, you shouldn't, even though you know what people said and will say more if this defense struggles, but you can't think that way. You got to say, hey, that's an asset. That's a resource for me. What you got?
The text line is just rolling in. A lot of correct answers on the text line.
Okay, I was going to say, are there some incorrect answers?
There are some incorrect answers, but there are a lot of correct answers.
You know what's funny? When you ask the question, I don't even remember what the real word is.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, I knew it from the start, which made that time all the much better.
Robby set me up.
We'll reveal the answer here in a second. I mean, look, I think we've got enough answers on the text line to reveal the answer already. Sciatica was the word that Joe Rexrode mispronounced, famously as sciatica. Sciatica, pronounced by Joe Rexrode.
Yep. Never living that one down.
That's right. So the first correct answer that I saw came from Jacob in Murfreesboro. Jacob in Murfreesboro. So, Jacob, hang with us. We'll be in contact with you here in just a few minutes. And try to get your information to join our Robby and Rexrode Fantasy Football League. Now, if you did not win today, do not be discouraged. You have 7 more opportunities in the next 7 days. So just keep that in mind.
Congrats, Jacob. And yes, everyone else, there's 7 more spots, as long as Jacob can claim a spot.
As long as Jacob claims a spot. If not, we will go in order down the list. There's several correct answers. So if you did not win today, if you're not contacted today, fret not. We'll have more opportunities coming up for you this week and in next week as well.
Or get your game face on, Jacob. No,
right.
No mercy.
Now, just to let you know, this is going to be an intense fantasy football league. I mean, there's a lot of pride on the line. Not only is it myself, Joe Rexrode, and Michelle, But Brennan, Joe Rexrode's son, also a part of this. And I was telling Michelle this yesterday. I am actively rooting for you to lose to Brennan because I think it would be awesome. I, however, will not allow myself to lose to Brennan. Just can't happen.
And I'd like to invite everyone, all adults joining this league, talk all the trash to Brennan you want. It's fine. Because he'll talk it to you.
The door is open for the trash talk. So keep that in mind. We will be continuing to throw out the trivia questions and invitations to our fantasy football league for the next 7 days here on the show as well. So congratulations to Jacob in Murfreesboro. We will hit you up here in just a few minutes and get your info for our fantasy football league. But, yeah, getting back to Shane Bowen, I mean, I thought it's really interesting, and I'm glad you asked that question at the end about Kevin Byard because that is, I think, one of the big talking points around this defense a year ago. Exactly what happened with Kevin Byard. Is it a down year for him? Was it a product of everything going on around him? Is this year going to look like the Kevin Byard that we've seen most of the time in his Titans career? Does it look more like the guy last year who was out of position at times? Now, was he out of position at times because he was trying to cover for somebody else? I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. But what version of Kevin Byard are we going to see this year? I think that's a big question, and I think that's a question that has a major impact on what type of defense as a whole we're going to see this year for the Titans.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be really good. But he was. I think Shane sort of gently said it there. Like sometimes you're in a matchup and you win or you lose, and he lost some of those matchups in the red zone and coverage when he's in man.
He did.
You know that you expect him to win more often. He lost in run support at times with bad angles that you weren't used to seeing. I do think that he was I think he suffered for what was around him, and you're probably right that sometimes trying to do too much, getting out of position, trying to compensate, probably was a factor at times for sure. So some of it is going to be dependent on things out of his control, but I'll bet you he looks like a pretty good NFL safety this year. And I think that Shane said it right there. He's it for us. It has gotten to the point where I think Kevin Byard is a great leader, a guy who is respected and liked by everybody, but who still will get after people and be very vocal out there. They've actually had periods, Lonnie Hooker was talking about this the other day, where they will actually have Byard not talk, kind of like with Landry.
Yep.
You can't use your favorite pass rush move. Okay, let's do this without Byard talking.
Yep.
So who's stepping up? And that's to get Hooker going too. But Byard is he is it, and you can do way worse than him as the leader of your defense.
I mentioned earlier in the segment some breaking news on the Indianapolis Colts front. We've talked about the contract extensions for Chris Ballard and for Frank Reich. Chris Mortensen putting this out there earlier. Good vibes all around the Colts. Jacob Eason and Sam Ehlinger are competing for the backup role. Yes, the backup role. Carson Wentz trending to open the season as the starter with all-pro guard Quentin Nelson on the same path after foot surgeries. The Colts open the season versus the Seahawks. So Mortensen putting it out there that it looks like Wentz and Nelson both trending to start the season for the Colts.
So 7 weeks earlier than the high end of the timeline.
Yes.
Well, good for them.
5 to 12.
5 to 12. And 5, is that right? 5 actually does have them, from when they got hurt, ready right before the opener.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be great for the Colts.
It would be. Be better certainly than the other option.
Yeah.
I would think.
It'd be better football for anybody to have to watch other than you're watching Ehlinger or Eason quarterback a team in the NFL.
Yes. Yeah. When we come back, we will continue the conversation on the National Football League. Sheil Kapadia, who covers the NFL for The Athletic, he'll join us coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, intern Will here with you on this Wednesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, talking all things NFL. And to help us do that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our good friend Sheil Kapadia from The Athletic. Sheil, what's going on, man? How we doing?
Doing well, guys. Doing a little training camp tour, so getting ready for Cleveland Browns practice here in a couple hours, and then we'll make my way down to Indianapolis to see the Colts and the Panthers.
Very nice. So do you buy the obviously a lot of hype on Cleveland this year heading into this season, a good run in the playoffs last year. What are your expectations for the Browns as they head into this season?
Yeah, I think they're on the list of contenders in the AFC. You know, to me, it's the Chiefs, and then you have sort of a next tier there, and I would put them. The GM, Andrew Berry, and the head coach, Kevin Stefanski. The question is, Baker Mayfield, does he have another level to get to past what we saw last year when he played well, but is there another level he can get to in kind of his second year in Kevin Stefanski's offense? So that, to me, is the big storyline here.
So, Sheil, I've got to talk about your playbook, which is just a tremendous piece of work. First of all, how much time did it take you to get all that done?
Yeah, no, that took most of my May and June. You know, I said if I'm going to do this kind of deep dive on all 32 teams, don't bother me with other stuff. You know, I got to focus on this. So yeah, that's 197 pages. It's at theathletic.com/NFL playbook. It's a big PDF. People can download if they're interested, just sort of a deep dive with the chapter on every team. So it was fun to do. It was preparation I needed to do anyway for the upcoming season, but it was a task to put it all together there.
So as I go through your Titans analysis, a lot of stuff that makes sense and adds up. But I thought some really interesting stuff on Tannehill that I guess might surprise observers around the league based on how he's regarded. Tannehill against the blitz, only Mahomes better. Tannehill play action, EPA per play, like really no difference whether he's in play action or not. Those two things stood out to me. What about the Titans as you were going through it? Did you say, oh, really, that is interesting, or maybe doesn't necessarily match up with what I thought or what I saw?
Yeah, I think the offense, you look at it the last 2 years, and we all know it's been really good, really, really good, but just some of the numbers.
I think we're having some phone issues with Sheil, so we will disconnect and try to get him back on the line and get Sheil back with us here. But it is interesting, the playbook he's put together at theathletic.com. You're talking about 197 pages, as he said. So,
yeah, I mean, every team,
extensive work.
Yeah, like every team broken down, in great detail, including coverages that were in more. I mean, anything you can basically think of, and of course, a lot of individuals broken down too. And again, sort of the conclusion, as I think about what we think, which is like if their offense can hold steady and then they get to okay, then they're one of the best teams in the AFC, know? And a lot of ifs that go into that. But the Tannehill stuff in particular, it doesn't match up with sort of the narratives about him.
It does not, but that's a very common theme.
That doesn't mean that they won't persist. They will.
Does not mean that the narratives are going to change anytime soon, would be my guess.
But, the defense – DVOA is certainly a very commonly used stat now. Basically value added. So you got the Titans passing a league low 42% of the times on early downs in neutral situation, which is interesting, but okay, we got Sheil back.
Yeah, we got Sheil
I'll
back
stop yapping.
on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Sheil, apologize for that. Had some phone issues here. Appreciate you taking time to come back on with us. And we were just discussing the Titans, and Joe, you had the question you wanted to throw out
Yeah,
there.
well, Tannehill. Yeah, you were starting on Tannehill, Sheil, if you can recall about where you were.
Yeah, no problem. I think, he certainly deserves a lot of credit for the efficiency he's played at, because a lot of quarterbacks get help around the league, whether it's their supporting cast or their offensive coordinator, the scheme, whatever. But, I think he's really performed at such a high level in that offense when you look at it statistically, and I think they've done a good job of making defenses be a little bit predictable with the way they've run the football so efficiently on early down. So to me, the big question is just, how much of that can they keep going without Arthur Smith, with the offensive coordinator change? How much of it is, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, let's keep it rolling? Or are we going to see a big drop-off because Arthur Smith was so good at the play calling, the sequencing, setting defenses up? So that, to me, is just the biggest question surrounding the Titans this year.
Sheil Kapadia from The Athletic on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And Sheil, what do you make of the Michael Thomas situation with the Saints? How likely do you think it is that he could be moved at some point by New Orleans?
There's been a change in this type of situation, I'd say, over the last 5 or 6 years. I think if we looked at it before that, you would say, no, there's no chance. He got a new contract. You look at the dead money, it makes no sense from a financial perspective. But what we've seen in recent years is that if a team is just sort of fed up with a player and says, listen, there's no way we can make this work, we're just going to kind of take our medicine with the money and move on. It's to a much larger degree. That was the Antonio Brown situation with the Steelers, and we've seen it with some other players as well. So, I think they want to probably try to explore every avenue to make this thing work out. But obviously, there are some pretty strong feelings on both sides. So if you ask me to sort of handicap it, I would say he would be on the team to start the season. They would see how the season goes. They'll see where they are as the trade deadline approaches sort of in the middle of the season. And then you look at the off season, and, at some point it just could come to a head. And Sean Payton could say, I don't want to deal with this anymore. We made a bad decision. Let's sort of eat it and get some draft capital in return.
Sheil, if I ask you, a team in each conference you think right now is overrated, overestimated, getting too much love, that you have questions about, who would you name?
I think in the NFC, I would say, and I don't know how much they're being overrated, but I have seen some people mention them as potentially a surprise team in the NFC East, and that would be the New York Giants. I've seen people think they might be able to compete for like a wild card spot or even for the division, given the moves they've made in the offseason with adding Kenny Golladay, adding Adoree Jackson, getting Saquon Barkley back. But I just look at it, and they did nothing to address their offensive line. And if your offensive line is one of the worst in the NFL, which it was last year, and if your play caller is Jason Garrett, who's really shown no ability to maximize the talent he has at his disposal, I just don't see how they're going to make some kind of monumental leap and all of a sudden become a playoff team. So that's the team I would probably name in the NFC. I'm trying to take a look here. In the AFC, I would say I'm not as high on the Patriots bouncing back as a lot of people might be. They went on that spending spree. It was like, Bill Belichick was like a college kid who signed up for the credit card for the first time. It was just like, wow, I can get you. I'm allowed to get all this stuff. This is fantastic. And so I looked at that, but it's a mediocre roster. It's not like they went out and they signed these impactful players. I mean, guys like Nelson Aguilar and Jonnu Smith, who you guys know is a very good player, but I don't know that he's somebody who's going to swing their offense. And so I look at that there, and I think they're probably more of a mediocre team than a team that's ready to make a big leap and really challenge for that division.
Sheil, what do you make of the Aaron Rodgers situation in Green Bay? Obviously, a lot of drama this offseason. He pretty much eviscerated the Packers front office in his season-opening press conference. What do you think of their chances to navigate through all this stuff with Aaron Rodgers and be one of the elite contenders again in the NFC, even given everything that's happened off the field, not only with Aaron Rodgers, but with Davante Adams as well?
Yeah, it really could go either way. Last year, Aaron Rodgers was unhappy that they drafted Jordan Love, and the guy turned in an MVP season. It was like unstoppable. So I don't know if we want to call it a spite season or what, but it was one of the the great spike seasons of all time, if that is what we want to call it. So could that happen again? Absolutely. They've still got the same system in place, and I think it would be a bigger issue to me if he had a problem with Matt LaFleur. If the head coach and quarterback are feuding going into a season, then obviously that's going to be a huge problem. Those two guys have to communicate every day. They have to be on the same page. But by all accounts, that's not what it is. I mean, his issue is with management. So can he sort of compartmentalize those feelings and say, listen, I'm here. I have a legacy that I am really, that is important to me. I have teammates that are important to me. I want to go out and turn in another fantastic season and compete for a Super Bowl. Yes, that would not surprise me at all. I mean, that team is 26-6 in the last 2 years. So I'm not going to predict them to fall off here now. But again, it's a lot of drama and distractions are probably overrated. But, to just kind of go in there and not know what the sort of long-term plan is going forward and knowing the quarterback's feeling towards management, could that have an effect? Yeah. So, if I'm predicting it, I still think they're going to be a very good team and make the playoffs and win that division. But it certainly, I would describe them as a little bit of a high-variance team.
Talking to Sheil Kapadia, does a fantastic job covering the NFL for The Athletic, and Aaron Rodgers had a prominent spot, Sheil, on your most intriguing players that posted yesterday. 25 most intriguing players in the NFL. Another guy in there who certainly intrigues me and also prominent on your list, Matthew Stafford, Los Angeles Rams. Are you buying Stafford, McVay, and Magic there? And the idea, which I kind of hold, that the Lions make a lot of great players suffer and they could do better elsewhere. Do you think that this is going to work? Are they a Super Bowl contender?
I think they are. Now they have a very top-heavy roster, so I think if they suffer some injuries and their depth gets tested, then they could kind of go downhill in a hurry. But, man, Sean McVay told you exactly what he thought with their off-season moves. And, that was that he thought the quarterback was holding them back. He thought they had a higher ceiling. He thought they couldn't do everything they wanted to do with Jared Goff as their quarterback. Well, now, McVay's got his quarterback and Matthew Stafford got his coach. Matthew Stafford, I think if his career ended now, we would all say, all right, good, good quarterback, solid quarterback, certainly talented, had his moments, but man, never won a playoff game in 12 seasons with the Detroit Lions. So, not somebody who could put a team on his back. Well, now he's got a chance to sort of reshape his legacy. And I do think that there are things they're going to be able to do in terms of pushing the ball downfield, in terms of Stafford reacting to pressure much better than Jared Goff did. Jared Goff, the numbers back it up. He kind of crumbled when he felt some pass pressure if the protection didn't hold up. So I think it's going to be an interesting team to watch for sure. But, I am on the bullish side of the Rams. I've got them winning that division and really being a contender in the NFC.
Sheil Kapadia from The Athletic has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Sheil, great stuff, man. Appreciate you taking the time to join us as always.
All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Sheil Kapadia from The Athletic, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. We'll come back. We'll react a little bit to what Sheil had to say there, including, do we buy this narrative that he's thrown out there that the Rams are legitimate Super Bowl contenders? All that and more coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, talking Titans, talking NFL as well. By the way, 102.5 The Game, bringing you Nashville's best coverage of training camp, presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans, Frontier Basement Systems, the All Things Basement Company, the Trenches Shop Gallery and Boutique, and the Cut Truck Mobile, Nashville's newest barbershop on wheels. You have control of the time and place. Book your appointment at thecutTruckMobile.org. Thanks to Sheil Kapadia for joining us in the last segment. Joe, it's interesting, and I was looking at his most intriguing players list up at The Athletic. Julio Jones obviously on that list as well, but Aaron Rodgers coming in at number 1, Tua Tagovailoa at number 5 on that list. So I think Brady was at number 9. So the boy wonder, Tom Brady, a little bit lower on the list than normal for Sheil Kapadia.
I don't even know why Brady's on it. I mean, he wins every game, completes every pass, doesn't he?
I mean,
what's intriguing about
That's
it?
intriguing.
He's won a Super Bowl every year he's been in the league. He's the GOAT. He's unstoppable. He's perfect.
You're such a hater.
There's nothing intriguing.
I can't wait till your Brady slander reaches a different level next week when the Titans are practicing against him all week.
What's slander? There's no slander.
There's slander.
He's the best, man.
Did you see the photo?
Nothing but love for Tom Brady.
Did you see the photo that Brady and Tony Dungy took together where they both look like they've seen a ghost as the camera snaps the picture?
No.
It's something. I'll find the photo of Brady and Dungy
Okay.
on Twitter.
Well, I'm sure Brady can speak to the dead, so.
Maybe so. Golly, there's a lot of sass
Why?
coming your way.
No, I mean, ask Jared. He's never had an incomplete pass. It's incredible.
So Sheil is on the Joe Rexrode train, where fully buying the L.A. Rams as a Super Bowl contender, says he's the Rams are his favorite to win the NFC West as well, which could be maybe the most loaded division in all of football. What do you think of that? He's thrown out there with Stafford being number 3, I think, on his most intriguing list of players, and also their chances of being a legitimate Super Bowl threat, a legitimate threat to win that division with Seattle, San Francisco, Arizona all in the mix as well.
Yeah, I'm more on the buying the Rams side of things too. So I agree. I mean, I think it could be really, really good. Don't like the injuries so far, but that's going to be a heck of a division. I like the Rams a lot. Like I like the Rams. Like I'm much more likely to buy the Rams than say the other Los Angeles team. And Herbert's on that list too. Another guy on that list, of course, is Julio Jones.
Correct.
So a Titan does make the list, and yeah, I guess I would agree he would be the most intriguing. I mean, if I look at most intriguing, it's not exactly the same as most important, but Julio Jones, and then I would say Bud Dupree would also be a contender for me. But I mean, if you're doing an NFL-wide list, if you go through this list, there's a whole bunch of quarterbacks.
Oh yeah.
But
is it too simple though to say like Derrick Henry's on that list for me? Like, can he do this again? I mean, that's a pretty intriguing storyline to me this year.
Yeah.
Can we see Derrick Henry at this level for the 3rd consecutive year?
That there is some intrigue there. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, Julio's a good pick as a most intriguing. Just obviously a huge change of scenery. He's just so identified with the Falcons. He had a gold jacket worthy tenure with the Falcons, and now he's continuing it. Coming off 9 games, hamstring, and all that stuff. Like, is he great still? Can he be great still?
There's the photo of Brady and Tony Dungy.
That's weird.
That Chris just sent in on the text line. Chris, we thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
That's a weird photo.
It's quite something. I guess that was at the Hall of Fame this weekend.
Yeah.
With Peyton Manning.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Best friends.
That photo.
Best friends Tom Brady and Peyton Manning.
Apparently they're tight.
Apparently so. Dan Campbell is on television right now on Good Morning Football discussing preseason games. It's like a test.
He's talking about like an odd job he did as a young person.
Is he the most? He might be the new most intriguing coach in the NFL.
He's talking about.
If I was doing an intriguing coach list, I think Dan Campbell may be at the top of the list.
He's talking about doing like working at the drive-through window. I don't know.
So.
But this is no. He is. I mean, hey.
I put Vrabel
He's
in the middle
great.
of the pack.
He's a credit to the league in terms of entertainment
He
value.
is.
And what is this? It's entertainment.
Vrabel's in the middle of the pack in terms of entertainment value,
Well, you talking about press conferences?
just overall.
Well, again, see, that's where I just wish. Well, we need Hard Knocks because the entertainment value is very high for him
On the field.
practice field.
Yes.
Very high. I mean, it's fantastic. Just some tremendous combinations of words out there. But I mean, yeah, and in all seriousness, total command, and I mean, I think it's often impressive that he's able to. I mean, he's able to basically see what everyone's supposed to be doing on both sides of the ball, and he's calling stuff out constantly. But yes, in a very entertaining way.
Yeah.
Now the press conference, I think Vrabel's in the bottom 5, right?
Might be.
Although I guess you'd have to go through the league and tell me how many coaches are actually fun at pressers. But Dan Campbell,
He's fun.
he might get me back into the silver rush, the restoring the roar. Maybe it's time, Brennan and I, to go back to the Lions' Den.
Chase McCabe texting in. Do we think after Dan Campbell drinks his 2 pots of coffee that he eats the actual pot of coffee? I think there's a chance.
And then a kneecap.
And he was talking about that, 40 ounces of coffee every day.
I thought he had 2 40 ounces.
Maybe it was 240 ounces. That's what it was, yeah.
80 ounces of coffee and
That's
then
an incredible amount of
4
coffee.
shots. Right, like I'm crushing this thing. So what? How many ounces is this?
I don't know, but it's not
Probably,
40.
Is this a quart? This probably isn't 32. This probably
Probably 32.
is it 32?
Well,
Okay.
he would have 2 24s, and then so almost 50 ounces, and then 2 shots of espresso in
That's a lot.
Oh,
man.
is that what I thought he said 2 40 ounces.
Well, so what we
Wow.
learned is you might be in the same ballpark as Dan Campbell.
But not right away. I mean, I keep the, like, what was it, last night? Or 2 nights ago, I'm like writing something. It's like 8 p.m. and I make a coffee, and Caroline's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I need more coffee. So during the course of a day, there's a lot of it, but not early that much. Be a little frenzied. Probably drop some F-bombs in the first segment here if I had 80 ounces of coffee right away.
Let's try to avoid that.
Yeah.
If
yeah.
at all possible.
I mean, I can be creative with them as well. Not as creative as Vrabel, but I'm close.
Just working on it on that front. I don't know. We've got, Sheil was on with us in the last segment. Are you buying the Browns hype? Like, there's a lot of hype on the Cleveland Browns this year.
That's
I get
a good
it. They
roster.
made a good run. They've got a good roster. I still don't know if Baker Mayfield is the quarterback that can take you to the next level.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, I think Baker Mayfield's good. Again, if you want to go by personal experience watching Baker Mayfield, he looked like an all-pro last year in this stadium.
He did.
Up and down. I mean, I think
Kendall Lamb was an all-pro receiver last year in that stadium too.
that's a good point. I mean, look, I think he's good. I don't think Baker Mayfield is necessarily ever going to be a great quarterback, but we're talking about a guy here who, I mean, I think Tannehill's better than Baker Mayfield, but I think they're probably similar tiered, and I think with both of them you could make a run. I like I put them right after the Titans. I put them ahead of the Ravens.
Yeah.
And I think the Bills, Titans, and Browns are all very close to each other, and Ravens.
Is it because of Clowney?
No, but I do think with Clowney, the expectations have kind of been muted a little bit. He does have a great pass rusher in support, and if he's healthy, I wouldn't be surprised if Clowney is an asset for them. It's not like the guy can't play at all.
Let's go to the text line.
Tom Brady didn't actually complete every pass, and Jadeveon Clowney has made a couple plays in his NFL career.
Let's go back to the text line. Got a texter that says, seems like there's been Browns hype for the past 4 off seasons. Now, I will say,
well, a couple years ago, that was easy to see that one coming.
A couple years ago was a disaster.
We're going to flop.
Now, they delivered last year. They played well, made the playoffs, won a playoff game.
I mean, just lit up the Steelers in the playoff game.
Yeah.
Who saw that one coming? I won't raise my hand. So I'm buying to a fair extent, yeah. I mean, I think they're definitely going to be a playoff team. I think they're going to win that division. And I think we could see a very important Titans-Browns game.
Yeah. Hopefully it goes a little bit better for the Titans. than it did a year
Well,
ago.
they need to show up in the first half. You never know.
That'd be a good start. When we come
Figure
back,
out when kickoff is.
we'll continue the conversation. Got a lot of your thoughts to get to on our text line as well. Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025, including some tickets to give away coming up next as well. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesale Link Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, intern Will here with you on this Wednesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. And we've got some tickets to give away right now. Be caller 3. Caller 3 at 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025 on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Caller 3 will win a pair of tickets to see the Yacht Rock Review at Marathon Music Works this Friday. So a pair of tickets to give away for Yacht Rock Review at Marathon Music Works coming up this Friday. Call the 3, 615-737-1025. Going to have Rick Stockstill join us at about 9:20 or so, MTSU head football coach on the program as well. And then at 9:40, MLS Commissioner Don Garber will be joining the show as well. So a loaded hour here for you, and we'll have some Nashville SC tickets to give away a little bit later in the hour as well. Right now, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Donovan from Wisconsin texting in, who is the John Tortorella of the NFL, at least for post-game press conferences? Joe, is there a John Tortorella of the NFL that maybe gets a little fiery in the post-game press conferences? And he used to be
I mean, Vrabel's had a few decent moments, but nothing like – I mean, Tortorella is just consistently delivers.
He does.
I mean, who the heck – I don't know. We don't have Rex Ryan. We don't have Rex Ryan anymore. Rex Ryan was that guy. Like, at times, Mike Tomlin can get fired up, but it's more like – intense versus funny.
Right. By the way, Tortorella going to be on ESPN for their NHL coverage.
I know
that'll be something.
Yeah. You watch Ted Lasso?
I've not seen it yet.
It's great.
I need to watch it.
But Vingan had an amazing tweet. So for people who get who have seen it, he tweeted out a picture of Roy Kent, former soccer player, who basically goes on TV talking about soccer, just talk about F-bombs. Like, basically, like, that's Tortorella. Anyway, if you watch Ted Lasso, you love the tweet. If you don't, you should watch it.
It's on the list.
Who's I don't know. Like, I mean, Gruden can be okay. Like, Andy Reid can be okay.
Do we think that Urban Meyer has that potential with the amount of losing that could happen in Jacksonville?
But Urban's he just goes to jerk mode. Like, he's not he doesn't really.
Well, I mean, Tortorella is not exactly a peach after.
No, but he's creative and like says sometimes outlandish, but at least very specific and often very funny stuff.
Right.
Like, if you say who is the Tortorella in the NFL, I don't know that there is one. I tell you, I think Dan Campbell's your best bet. The thing about Dan Campbell is, it's like this honeymoon period, and it's hilarious, and his coffee and his kneecaps. When they start getting their butt kicked on a weekly basis, that's where Dan Campbell could be your John Tortorella. That's where now being ticked off about losing and being that intense and outspoken could be interesting. Because I'm looking around. I mean, Sean Payton is. I mean, Bruce Arians is pretty good. McVay. Yeah. I mean, there's some good talkers. But I don't know that there's really anyone who fits that bill.
I mean, it used to be Dennis Green.
Dennis Green was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dennis Green was great. I mean, Joe Judge might, fight someone.
He might fight his staff. You think
Coach Judge.
Maybe, yeah, Coach Judge against Coach Pruitt out there in New York?
Oh, man.
Maybe little fisticuffs out there?
Boy, Jeremy Pruitt, man. For some reason, he's been a topic lately, and yeah, there's an interesting piece that we'll have in a short period of time. I'll just say that
at theathletic.com.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Yes, make sure you check that out. If you missed it, some breaking news on the Indianapolis Colts front today. Chris Mortensen putting it out earlier that Jacob Eason and Sam Ehlinger competing for the backup spot because there is hope, and apparently moving in the direction of Carson Wentz and Quentin Nelson also being available to play week 1 for the Colts against Seattle. So the 5 to 12 week timeline that we talked about, it looks like Wentz and Nelson could be on track to play at the shorter end of that, maybe even as early as week 1 for the Colts against Seattle, which we talked about earlier in the show. Sam Ehlinger was splitting first-team reps yesterday with Jacob Eason at practice. That is not the formula for success that you want if you're the Indianapolis Colts.
No, that's not. That's not a good comment on Eason, but that's great news for the Colts and certainly could make things a lot more interesting if those guys are back that quickly. I mean, I'm more surprised like Quentin Nelson. I'm just always surprised when a big guy would be on something like that, would be on the short end of a timeline. But it was a weird timeline to begin with.
It was a weird
Maybe it should have been 5 to 7 weeks and just called a day.
As Vrabel said, you got a pretty good chance of being right when it's 5 to 12 weeks.
Yeah. See, there was Vrabel being funny.
Yes. Joe Rexrode, you've been out at Titans training camp. last couple of days with officials at Titans training camp. What have been some of the things that have stood out to you for the Titans for the last couple of days at camp?
Yesterday was a really interesting day for Ryan Tannehill because I think it was the first real full go team period. Actually, this was a 7-on-7 period. He had a run, a fade to Westbrook-Akina with a really good catch with really tight coverage. Marcus Johnson made a couple plays in a row. Maybe the pass of camp, which was the Titans in man free, which, by the way, if you read Sheil Kapadia's breakdown of the Titans, the zone that's most common is cover one, which is the same thing. Basically, it's just man coverage, and you got a single high safety.
Yep.
So that was the coverage yesterday in the 7-on-7. Byard is the single high safety. Amani Hooker is singled up against Anthony Ferkser. And there's a very small window between Hooker with Byard coming over, and he dropped it in. But then Tannehill in the last team period red zone, he had struggles. He went on a stretch of sailing everything, and then he threw a pick that Byard got in front of A.J. Brown and made a great play. But it was kind of a dunk too. I mean, A.J. Brown, going for A.J. Brown in the back of the end zone, that's usually a good idea, but Byard was right there. So Tannehill, had his ups and downs. I think that they'd like to see fewer mistakes from him. I'm hesitating to read too much into it. But it is interesting with camp. I mean, you've got some things that maybe I didn't read enough into DeShone Kizer struggling as much as he did because he's gone. He's long gone.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, he'll get a couple preseason games and see bye. So sometimes you trust what you're seeing. I will trust what I'm seeing with Marcus Johnson. I'm converted to believing that he's going to make the team, and also that if they played today, that he would be their third receiver and would get a lot of snaps and would probably get some targets and receptions. He's been great.
Oh, every day. That's the thing. I mean, and you brought this up earlier with Shane Bowen on the defensive side with T.R. Tart, a guy that's shown up and showed out every day. Marcus Johnson, and admittedly, with guys on offense that have kind of been coming in and out, it's hard to find that consistency that way when you're not out there every day. But Marcus Johnson's been out there every day, and he's been productive every day. At some point, you do that for long enough, you kind of force your way into the conversation. And as you said earlier in the show, to you it's gotten to the point where it's less about whether or not he's going to make the team, but how much of a role could he have with this team, given the way he's played thus far in training camp.
Yeah, look, I would say that Marcus Johnson and then Chester Rogers have been, again, take A.J. Brown out of the equation. We know what A.J. Brown is. But after A.J. Brown, and Julio Jones has barely participated, Marcus Johnson, number one to me clearly, and then I would go Chester Rogers, number two, in terms of receivers consistently making plays. And, again, those guys are getting reps with the ones. I mean, the ones aren't out there a lot. So they're catching passes from Tannehill. They are catching passes while being covered by Fulton and Jenkins and Byard, So they're getting like the real work, and they're doing work. So after them, at this point, I might go Westbrook-Akina because lately I thought he was very quiet in camp early, but lately he's kind of, I see you smiling over there. That's fine. I mean, every time he either makes a play or doesn't make a play, the entire press corps looks at me. So I either get taunted, I either have, Rassapal screaming at me, or I'm screaming at him.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's fun. But seriously, I mean, he had a really good day yesterday. I made a couple really big-time catches. And other than that, McMath certainly shows up. You want to see more from Des Fitzpatrick. And I just think Josh Reynolds is obviously coming off an injury, and he had an injury in the spring. And I think he's got some important work ahead of him to establish himself. Maybe the coaches don't look at it that way, and they're like, no, I mean, he's the three. He's the three. But I don't see how you can ignore what Marcus Johnson has done. Marcus Johnson is a guy who got in this league because of blazing speed, and despite really not producing that much at Texas, well, over several years, practice squad with the Eagles, Seahawks for a cup of coffee, 3 years as a special teams guy and an occasional receiver for the Colts. He's worked on his craft, and he's gotten better, because if that guy went back to Texas, the way he knows how to play receiver, he probably has massive numbers. I mean, it's called working on your craft and getting better. Good for him. I think he's really taking advantage of this opportunity. I wouldn't have looked at this receiver room with McMath coming in, with Fitzpatrick drafted, with Julio now signed, and said, great opportunity, Marcus, but he's head of the class right now.
Well, what about Racing McMath? Because, as you know, he was the storyline in camp for the Titans. The first few days of camp, everybody was talking about Racing McMath, and then A.J. Brown makes the comments about, Racing McMath reminds me a little bit of Julio Jones, and that got people going in the press room, and there was a lot of excitement about Racing McMath. There's not been as much chatter about him. Honestly, there's been more chatter about Marcus Johnson and the way that he's played. What have been your impressions over the last week or so from McMath, and what do you think his chances are of making this football team?
I think he's definitely got a chance. I'm a little bit less bullish on him now, but Friday, watch the punts, watch the kicking game. Who's out there? How do they do? The film of that stuff is going to be very precious to these coaches. I think McMath, that's why he was drafted. And he just is an intriguing talent, as we've talked about. A guy who didn't get a lot of opportunity at LSU, but even like last year, I would think he would have gotten more than he did. Like yesterday, he made a couple nice plays. He looks good. He's big, fast. He's working on it. He's not a guy right now who I think the Titans would, if they played again. Let's say again, the game starts today. I don't think he's out there. I don't think he would be out there at all with the offense. Whereas like a Marcus Johnson absolutely would be.
Yeah.
But I think he's had a chance to make it. I mean, if they played today, I think you'd have Kendall Lamb at right tackle, provided he's healthy. And he was not out there, and he got hurt the day before. So he's not out there yesterday. He was hurt the day before. I think you'd have Chris Jackson at slot corner. I know a lot of fans don't get excited about, a low pick from a year ago, but he has worked his butt off, and he's holding off Elijah Molden. We'll see how long that lasts. We'll also see if Caleb Farley comes on. Does Christian Fulton get a look in there? He played in there some last year. That's a really interesting. Do they think their best three is Fulton, Jenkins, Farley if they're all full go? I don't know. But right now, Chris Jackson's your slot corner, and Caleb Farley is not in the starting lineup. He's just getting going. So there's some things that right now might be different than when they actually line up on September 12th.
This coming from Ross Dellinger of Sports Illustrated. Dr. Pepper has partnered with Clemson quarterback DJ Uiagalelei for their next installment of Fansville, the first big brand to partner with a major college football player for a national TV commercial. So DJ Uiagalelei partnering with Dr. Pepper.
You just wanted to read this news to show off how well you say his last name.
That is correct.
Didn't you?
That is correct.
So
after the experience we had with it last year, I will never forget how to say Uiagalelei's last name.
Uiagalelei.
Yep.
What was the experience again?
Well, we just butchered his last name in every way possible. I think Porth clipped one up one time, and it sounded
DJ-U.
Yeah. I mean, it sounded like I was trying to speak a different language.
Is there a dollar total on there?
Not that I see, but I'm sure it's
good
pretty
for
penny
him.
For Dr. Pepper.
Hey,
my guess.
You're a clear starting quarterback for one of those programs. Hey, and here's the thing: when we talk about what the impact will be on, rich get richer, et cetera, et cetera. There's only one guy who can be quarterback there. So would a backup who might stay around be like, you know what? I can be USC's or UCLA's starting quarterback right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think you're going to see a lot of those, high-profile positional guys, quarterbacks especially, getting seven figures, being millionaires in college. And you know what? Good for them.
Uiagalelei is quoted in this piece on SI.com, quote, I drink Dr. Pepper here and there. I mean, I don't think you need to drink Dr. Pepper every single day, but I love Dr. Pepper. I drank it as a kid. It's a great drink. I drink it now. I'm sure you do.
Well, I like it a lot better now today. It's weird.
Dr.
Like it
Pepper,
just tasted better to me.
So much better today here in Clemson, South Carolina. Oh, what a time to be DJ Uiagalelei.
That reminds me, we had John Adams on yesterday and forgot to ask him about how he paid a Tennessee soccer player $20 to endorse his column. Frickin' genius.
Awesome. When we come back, we'll be joined by MTSU football coach Rick Stockstill. We'll look ahead to the season upcoming for the Blue Raiders, get his thoughts on the ever-changing landscape of college football as well. All that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, intern Will here with you on this Wednesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. And we are pleased to go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in MTSU head football coach Rick Stockstill here to the program. Rick, what's going on, man? How we doing?
I'm great, man. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning. So, Coach, with football and the real thing getting fired up here in a couple of weeks, what's the fall been like, or the late summer been like at this point, preparing for the upcoming season, especially when you compare it to this time a year ago and all the questions that were involved heading into college football season this time a year ago?
Yeah, it's a lot different, obviously, from that standpoint. But we've had 5 practices so far, and been really good. Been really pleased with where we're at. The leadership, the energy. Got a lot of new players out there. Some young guys from last year that, weren't able to have spring practice that were able to have it this year, and then moving on to this fall. So I like where we're at right now. We got good competition at a lot of at a lot of positions, and really pleased where we're at after 5 days.
Rick, I know there's so much going on outside of football. I mean, a year ago we talked about obviously just a completely different year, and this year will be different too than a normal year, but also the game. So many changes going on. What have you thought about all these things, the name, image, likeness, the expansion, the SEC adding Texas and Oklahoma? What were your initial thoughts about those things, and how do you think those things affect Middle Tennessee?
Yeah, it's obviously, college athletics is going to be a lot different here in the next couple of years from, what the traditionalist, what we've grown up, watching, coaching, playing, being involved with it, the last 20 years. So it's going to be a lot different. I'm glad, the NIL stuff, I think that's good. It gives guys an opportunity to develop their brand and promote themselves a little bit. And, if they can put a little extra dough in their pocket, that's good. I don't think that's a bad thing. And, the transfer portal is obviously, I think probably the transfer portal that maybe people don't recognize or realize how much it's affecting the high school athlete, because those guys aren't going to have the same opportunities that they had 3 or 4 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, because a lot of schools are going to recruit the portal more so than they are the high school kid, because once you sign that kid in the transfer portal, you've got him. He can't go anywhere unless he wants to sit out a year. You recruit a high school kid, now he's got, a little extra in his pocket that, things don't go well, don't go how he hoped they would go, he can leave. So you recruit a high school kid and you spend 2 years developing him, and now, he's attractive to a Power 5 school, he picks up and leaves, and now, you've wasted 2 years of your time developing him. So I think a lot of colleges are going to recruit the portal more so than the high school kids. So it's going to affect them a lot. And then, conference realignment, you always thought you were going to get another wave of it. And then obviously 2 weeks ago when Oklahoma and Texas joined in the SEC, you got to be, not very smart to think that those are the only 2 teams that are going to move. So I think there's going to be a lot of movement here, within the Power 5 schools. And, we've got to do a good job of positioning ourselves, at the Group of 5 level, Middle Tennessee and everybody else in the Group of 5, positioning yourself and having a plan for, that next wave.
Yeah, obviously, I look at the 12-team playoff, Rick, and it sounds like, Group of 5 could be more opportunity, should be, certainly. But then there's people saying, 16 to the SEC, and now maybe the Power 5 just does their own thing. mean, are you concerned about that and just competitive balance in general because of all this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the rich are going to get richer. And, yeah, there is a concern. I still believe that the group of five will have a place. I don't think it'll be, the group of five and the Power Five and everybody else. I don't think it'll, be that way. I think that the group of five will still, have access to the bowl games. I think we'll have access to, the playoffs. I don't think, you're going to look at it and say the group of five is going to have, 3 or 4 teams in it. But I think they will have a plan, to give, a couple teams or, a couple spots there access to it if you're deserving. But yeah, I think there with all the NCAA talk about having a commissioner for football, I think all that talk is legit. I think it's a strong possibility. And like I said earlier, I think college athletics of how we've grown up in it, I think is getting ready to change, drastically here in the next year or two.
MTSU head football coach Rick Stockstill on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And Rick, another one of those things that's different this year that you're having to navigate through as well is the extra year of eligibility. I think you guys had 10 players coming back for an extra year of eligibility as well. What's it like to kind of navigate that change in your dynamic in the roster this year with guys who would have been out last year now coming back for yet another season and factoring that in with the incoming freshmen as well? How do you kind of navigate through that as a coach and with your staff as well?
The NCAA, they were the nice guys. They were nice. They said, hey, everybody gets a free year, another year, but they put the pressure on coaches now that we got to be the bad guy because, we still have to navigate our 85, our scholarship limit roster. So, you don't know. You got juniors that should be seniors this year. Are they going to come back next year? Am I going to have to say, man, you've done everything right. You've been a great player in our program. You've been a great person in our program, but it's time for you to move on. I know you want to come back, but we don't have a spot for you. All those things that, the NCAA are making us be the bad guy. And because, we don't know. And we're going to have hard conversations here, with your guys. Those 10 guys coming back this year, that was easy. I know those 10 guys have to leave. They cannot stay. But those, 18 juniors, it affects recruiting. I can't say right now how many scholarships we're going to have available. So that affects recruiting, who we're going to recruit and all that, because we don't know. That junior may, say, hey, I'm going to go to the NFL. I'm just going to graduate and get on with my life. So those conversations that we have to have here pretty soon, are going to determine a lot of different things or are going to affect a lot of different things within your roster, how you recruit, what position you recruit, all your needs. So, like I said, the NCAA, they got a nice guy pat on the back, but we're going to be the bad guy saying, it's time for you to move on.
Rick, what do you think you have in Bailey Hockman, transfer from NC State at quarterback?
I'm excited about Bailey. He's, a really good person. He's been a great teammate in the 6 months that he's been here, 7 months that he's been here. He throws the ball extremely well. He's got a quick release. He's fit in really nice. And, I think he's got a chance to, he's still learning. He's only had 20 practices, 15 in the spring and 5 now. So he's still learning the offense and adapting and adjusting to everything. And But really excited about him so far and the 20 practices that we've watched him.
Rick, what do you think of just the strength of Conference USA in general? Seems to me a conference that continues to get better with each passing year. What do you make of the strength of the conference you guys are in as you get back to a little bit more of a normal schedule this year rather than kind of bouncing around like everybody had to a year ago?
Yeah, I think Conference USA, I know Conference USA has always been, underappreciated. There's good players, there's good coaches in this conference. And the thing that you may be able to tell about Alabama or Georgia or Florida State, you can kind of predict what they're going to be each year. The thing about Conference USA, it's hard to predict because, we brought in whatever it was, 7, 8, 9 transfer guys, portal guys. Every school in Conference USA did that. So our team makeup, our roster, changes so much, so much different. We're going to be so much different this year than we were last year that you don't really know what it's going to look like until you get out there and play. So for me to say I got a good idea what Louisiana Tech is going to be, I couldn't say that right now because their roster changed so much, through the transfer portal, and I could say that about each team in Conference USA. So, but there's like I said, a lot of really, really good players in this conference, and there's excellent coaches in this conference also.
Another coach on your staff, Rick, Brent Stockstill, coach and receiver. So, first of all, what's the difference between having him as your quarterback, having him as your receivers coach? And I know Brent's got a bright future. I mean, I know, he's coming back home here and coaching under you, but I imagine you had competition to land him.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about Brent. He's done a great job here, and his last 2 or 3 years here, he was basically a coach on the field anyway. Talking to receivers and the running backs and everything. So really excited. He had a couple other opportunities to go somewhere else, but he chose to come here, and I'm excited about it. He's already had a huge impact on our receivers. They've responded to him really well. He's an excellent coach. He brings great energy every day. He's a great communicator. His, being around Lane Kiffin for a year at Florida Atlantic, and then Jeff Scott and the Clemson things that he learned while he was at South Florida last year. He's brought a lot of great ideas to our offensive staff, and just done a great job. And excited about him and what he's done here in the short period of time that he's, the 6-7 months that he's been here.
MTSU head football coach Rick Stockstill has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Rick, really appreciate you taking time to join us this morning. Thanks for the great information, and good luck as you continue to move through camp here.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on. Have a great day.
Absolutely. You as well. MTSU head football coach Rick Stockstill here on Robby and Rexrode. Tell you what, you talk about a guy that just constant, a force down there at MTSU. Really good coach. I think it's exciting to have Brent Stockstill on the staff as well. And you talk about a guy that could have a bright future in coaching. Brent Stockstill, by all accounts, seems to be on that list.
Yeah, he'll be a fast riser. And, obviously, he's home right now.
Yeah.
We've got a young family, coach for his dad. That's kind of a dream, right? But, Brent Stockstill being a head coach somewhere, someday being an OC in a few years, I won't be surprised at all if that happens.
When we come back, we will be joined by MLS Commissioner Don Garber. Some big news from Nashville SC yesterday regarding their new stadium. We'll get into all that and more coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Michelle Knezovic, intern Will here with you on this Wednesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. And we are pleased to go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Don Garber, MLS Commissioner. Don, what's going on? Thanks for taking time to join us.
Well, lots going on here. Been in Nashville the last day and a half, sort of supporting the club and checking out the stadium, and so excited to be here.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you here, and I wanted to start on that front. You checked out the stadium yesterday. Obviously, Nashville SC announcing that season ticket sales up until this point have gone very, very well for them. What were your impressions of the stadium? As you've mentioned, what's going to be the largest soccer-specific stadium in the entire league coming up. What were your impressions walking around and seeing the progress that's been made on that front?
Well, I think it's going to be spectacular. I mean, what an incredible venue, right in the historic fairgrounds, and it's sort of situated kind of overlooking the city and so much opportunity to develop the area around that. Think of it as part soccer park, part entertainment center, part housing, including a lot of affordable housing, which I think will be great for the city. And, they did announce that ticket sales were going on, going to be going on sale yesterday. I think they had a couple of thousand just in the last 24, 36 hours.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show that, people now know that stadium is going to be open in the early part of the MLS season next year, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, Don, obviously it's gone very well for the club immediately here in Nissan Stadium. Good atmosphere. The fan groups have been great. But it just, you can imagine how much better it might be there. Why was it so important for you for new franchises to commit to building their own stadiums?
It's a great question, and it's sort of the foundational DNA of I think all sports, but certainly it is so much so in MLS because we are the last major league to come in, right? So when you think about a football team or a hockey team, you just can't imagine it's not going to have its own stadium. And yet in MLS, so many of the clubs that came into the league were playing in somebody else's home, and we were fortunate to be able to play a couple of years here in Nissan Stadium. And by the way, without that, MLS couldn't have even come here, right? So you have to have a place that celebrates the sport, that personifies the brand, and represents what this team wants to be, both on and off the field, not only from a fan and game day experience perspective, but also, as you would expect, a way to drive revenues so that this club can go out and hire the right staff, do the right marketing, sign the right players, and try to be as successful on and off the field as they can be.
Well, Don, to that point, you were a guy that was bullish on Nashville SC from the start. I remember when the announcement was made that MLS was coming here, you were very high on what this could be, what kind of a soccer market this could be. And obviously immediately on the field, their success last year with Nashville SC, they make the playoffs, they make a run in the playoffs, and are off to another great start again this season on the field. Just kind of from watching, what would have been your impressions of the way that Nashville SC has entered themselves and kind of ingrained themselves into the league here just through the first couple of years, both on the field and off the field as well?
It's a great question, and I've always been excited about the market. I think anybody that's running a national business knows that Nashville is such an important and vibrant and energized growing city in North America. So if you have a business, you want to have a location here. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. But when we had John Ingram step up and be the primary owner of the team and then go out and hire here and there, one of the more well-respected soccer or football executives in the world, we at the league office got a sense by this is ultimately going to be terrific. They build a wonderful brand that sort of resonates with what Nashville is about, which clearly at its core is the music scene. They own a color, right, which is kind of cool. They created a great ritual with Jude and the anthem they did, and certainly the guitar promotion with Gibson before each game. And it just seems to be on and on and on, making good decisions, signing the right players, getting Walker Zimmerman over here in a complicated and aggressive trade, and signing Dax McCarty, who is one of MLS's great veterans. And you start thinking about all these things, it's no wonder that the team is doing well broadly. going even deeper off the field, John and the Ingram family has been committed to this community for generations. So we knew that when we brought him into our ownership group, and I think he's really over-delivered. The stadium has a significant amount of minority-owned businesses in terms of contractors. The training ground that I'll be visiting later today, about 10 miles out of town, is entirely designed and constructed by minority-owned businesses. This is just the way John Ingram and his family operate, and everybody here should be proud of that. They've done a good job.
Yeah, strictly on the pitch, Don, are you surprised at, and I know you've had other clubs come in and be competitive quickly, but just how well they've played?
Yeah, it's funny. For league guys, every win is a zero-sum game, right? So somebody's winning and somebody's losing.
That's right.
So, you try not
Can't play
to really,
favorites.
spend too much time thinking about what it is that they need to do to be successful other than observing from afar. I'm pleased. I mean, you always want home teams and home team fans to be happy, guys, and that's the only thing league offices focus on, because if a home team is happy, then they get shared memories, and they take their kids to a game and say, you remember that game where that 92nd minute goal was scored, or we got into the playoffs in the last minute. Those kinds of things are great for building long-term, fan consistency or fan avidity, and I'm very happy for them.
MLS Commissioner Don Garber on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. So, Don, what's this last year and a half been like, just trying to navigate through all the different challenges that come with playing through a pandemic? We've talked a lot about that here on the show, obviously, and Nashville SC had their fair share of challenges with that last year as well. Just wondering from your perspective, from a league trying to put this thing together and be as safe as possible, what's kind of that challenge been like for you and your staff navigating through this past year and a half?
It's been the most difficult thing that I, 35 years in sports, ever had to address and deal with. And, I've been around through 9/11. I've been around through multiple financial crises and contracting teams and all sorts of things that, you would imagine happen in pro sports. What I will say is that crisis really makes you either really better or and stronger, or it can really cripple you. And I think our focus from the very beginning was to try to learn as much as we could, get focused very quickly on getting our players back into the field. That turned out to be the bubble in Orlando, then managing that bubble in the safest possible way and delivering on a schedule for our broadcast partners and all of our corporate partners and for our fans. And then in the late summer, getting back into our markets and traveling players around with new medical protocols, and then hosting a final in Columbus. And we're the only league in the world to do that, a bubble return to market and then play a fan-hosted final. And again, I look back on it with pride, but with a lot of exhaustion. And you hope you don't have to go through that again. And we got to put plans in place to be better in front of it than perhaps our entire industry was last year.
Right. So hopefully soon we can talk about just post-pandemic, and you're moving on to, business as usual, so to speak. So with that in mind, Don, next few years, what's your biggest challenge?
Well, I'll get to challenge, but I'll speak to first opportunity. We have a new stadium coming online in Nashville, a new team coming on next year in Charlotte, another team in St. Louis with a beautiful downtown stadium, and then our 30th team still to be selected. So I put that both in challenge and opportunity. You got to get that right because it'll be our last team. The challenge of sort of continuing to grow this sport as soccer gets more and more popular, and ultimately all of the things that we need to do to just continue to build relevancy in our markets, grow our fan base, and then be prepared for the World Cup in 2026.
MLS Commissioner Don Garber has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Don, really appreciate you taking time to join us this morning.
Thank you very much. Good chatting, guys.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Don Garber, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Nashville SC looking good right now. Season ticket sales going very well for the new stadium. And, look, I'm excited. I mean, that stadium, from the draw-ups and the wrap-ups that I've seen in terms of just what it looks like already in the construction process, but also what it's going to ultimately look like, It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see that early next spring in 2022 as MLS gets underway next year.
Yeah, I mean, I went in there a couple months ago when they had a media thing, and you could sort of see it. I didn't go yesterday. I know a few other media went there, and you saw some pictures, and it's really coming together. And just the area, the stadium itself, perfect size, I feel like, and it really is a great atmosphere. I mean, one thing you can count on, in MLS. Well, I guess I can't speak for every market, but here, I mean, it's a fun time. It is a guaranteed fun time at a Nashville SC match, and with that sound sort of more contained and a more intimate, brand new stadium, it's going to be really cool. I feel like season tickets are, as we're already seeing, are going to do extremely well.
And we've got some Nashville SC tickets to give away as well to their match coming up next Wednesday against Orlando. We got a trivia question for you. Hit up our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Other than this past Olympics, which just wrapped up, when was the last time the USA women's soccer team did not win gold in the Olympics? When was the last time the USA women's soccer team, other than this most recent stretch here in Tokyo, did not win gold in the Olympics? If you know the answer, hit up our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. You can win a 4-pack of tickets to see Nashville SC take on Orlando at Nissan Stadium coming up on Wednesday, August the 18th. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Been a fun ticket this year. And look, that atmosphere, as you mentioned, it's awesome. So if you've not been out to a Nashville SC game yet, make sure you check it out. I can promise you, you will not regret it on that front. Joe, what's going on with the Titans today?
So they got a later practice today.
I don't know that they're necessarily going to be avoiding the heat that way.
No, and I don't know that that's what it was.
It's not.
Yeah, so I think they're trying to do some – it's sort of a game week thing where they're trying to walk through / plan stuff now, and they're going to take it to the field later. I think they were going to be at Nissan, or maybe I was wrong. No, they were not going to be – I thought they were going to be at Nissan. They were not going to be at Nissan, but they were going to go 5 to 7. Instead, it's going to be, I think, 3 to 5-ish. So that's why I'm still here all the way to the end of the show.
That's right.
To your dismay.
That's right.
But then they will, of course, so this will be it for this week. Then tomorrow's a travel day, and Friday, everyone will actually get to watch them play football. Whoever whoever is out there, there's definitely some important players who are going to be getting, I'd say, a lot of reps.
That's right.
Friday night.
Well, that does it for us today here on Robby and Rexrode. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Darren, Donica, Chase coming up next. This is ESPN 102.5 The Game.